Up on what?
Oh, metal roofs.
Oh, metal roofs, okay. Metal roofs.
Yeah, when are the design guys?
I don't know what happened with that, yeah.
Makes it really hard.
I had a meeting with our new mayor and I kind of mentioned that to him. He was talking about getting some things going. I said, well, we need to get that going.
Oh my God, that's what, is it 5 years into that?
Yeah. I mean, I was on a committee about this
Yeah.
5 years ago.
Yeah, because it was when we were still meeting in 6 years, because it was still, we were still meeting in person when we split off and did the residential and commercial guidelines.
Yep.
That was before COVID.
Yeah, before COVID, yeah.
Wow.
So it's been going slow.
That's ridiculous. Yeah.
Oh, that one,
They
yeah.
were asking legal.
Okay, and so
It's been all that, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
For legal
Yeah.
reason?
Yeah. Yeah, because I said
Oh, because of that,
use permit may not be valid.
that issue with the lot, yeah.
The lot split may not be valid. My read on it is not.
The what? You want to talk about it? So you want to pull it? Okay.
What was that?
She just wants to pull the calendar for 2025. Consent agenda. She's got some staff has something they want to tell us.
Like, hey guys, we're gonna go start meeting every other week. No, you're not. No, I don't think so. I can give up one day of my life every now and then. That's what's so hilarious with the city council.
Making any headway?
It's a ton of time. It's absolutely a ton of time. You think we have a ton of time? At least twice the 5 times. I have to say I didn't even look at the calendars.
She didn't either.
Yeah, it was the
Figured
second Wednesday.
Sure, what?
I'll be there.
After this many years, I got it.
Oh, I see one thing. So February they moved us. They moved the February and the January meeting?
They moved the January meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw something about that. Yeah, I saw something about
No.
that.
Oh, because it would have been the 8th. That doesn't give them time to...
Because it comes so quickly.
so fast after the holiday, which is fine. And then, so the 19th. Okay. That's fine.
It's just a January meeting.
Yeah, it's just
She wants to
January.
mention to us.
We'll put that on the calendar.
I will be able to do the February 19th one.
February 19th?
Yeah, I can't do that one. I'll be in Orlando.
Fine for you.
So they changed it to February 19th?
Yeah, it
Yes.
should have been the 12th.
Yeah.
Let's see.
sent you was something different. Was it the one? Yeah, no, it's a. Should I not be there? No. Where should I be? In the original. Yeah. The original. I don't think so either. So fortunately, Mr. Chair, we have our agenda. The way that our agenda is put together now. Let me say this outline. All right. So. Thank you everyone for your patience. We're having a bit of a technical difficulty, and I don't think that's going to resolve itself. However, and Shelby, you can close this because this isn't the right one. However, the way that these meetings are agendized now, this is for Planning Commission, City Council, HRB. It says right at the top that we will make our every effort to make it available online. However, if there are technical difficulties, the meeting will proceed. And so we can proceed in the meeting. We don't have to cancel the meeting.
Okay. All right, with that, I will call the regular meeting of the Carmel-by-the-Sea Planning Commission to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Allen?
Here.
Commissioner Locke?
Here.
And Chair LePage?
Here. Okay, I want to wish all of you a happy holiday season from this old elf. Okay.
I love that jacket.
All right. First item of the public appearances. Under the Brown Act, public comments for matters on the agenda must relate to that agenda item, and public comments for matters not on the agenda must relate to subject matter under the jurisdiction of this legislative body. Hateful, violent, and threatening speech is impermissible. Public comment as it disturbs the conduct of the public meeting. This is a warning that if a member of the public attending this meeting remotely violates the Brown Act by failing to comply with these regulations for the Brown Act meeting, the speaker may be muted. And I think we probably have an announcement, don't we?
We do, Mr. Chair. Thank you for asking. So because he snuck out early last time to try to avoid any of this type of situation, I wanted to take a couple minutes, and hopefully the Planning Commission will join me in congratulating and thanking now City Council member Delves, who's in the audience, but former Planning Commissioner Delves, who served faithfully with us for 4 years after joining this commission. You know, for me, from a staff perspective, I just want to recognize. So I'm going to let you all in on a little bit of secret. We know right away when a planning commissioner or a city council member has not read our staff report. We know right away. None of you are ever guilty of this, but I've worked in places where it's obvious very quickly who has not read the staff report. And one of the things you could always count on with Commissioner Delves was that he would read everything and understand it as well. Not only staff reports, but all the appending documents, things like an entire housing element or a general plan or a zoning code. And so it was always a pleasure working with Commissioner Delves on behalf of all the staff. We all enjoyed working with him because he asked tough questions. You know, we come here as staff to present to you and expect to get questioned and try to get answers. And they were always fair and balanced and thoughtful in trying to get to the best yes possible, the best solution possible. So I personally, on behalf of staff and the city, would like to recognize Commissioner Delves and the wonderful job that he did here as a commissioner for us, and look forward to working with him on the city council. So thank you for the opportunity to mention that. I'm assuming you're all going to say something too, but afterwards I do have a little certificate that I'd like to present to Mr. Delves afterwards.
I think everything you said is completely correct. Bob was always prepared. He was really a pleasure to work with. Very reasoned voice, always worked to help mitigate any impacts on the applicants and the neighbors, and I know he's going to make an excellent councilman. So,
And I'll chime in and say how much I've appreciated working with you, Bob. And I know that you're going to be an excellent council person. I think that the city's very lucky to have you continuing, and I wish you the best in your future endeavor, and going to miss you up here. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm really excited for you, Bob, and congratulations. I am so grateful for all of your service, and really, I mean, when you came to these meetings, you were like the gold standard in terms of being prepared and having all the information, and so we're really going to miss you. Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Commission. And if you'll indulge me, I'm going to ask Commissioner Delves to come up front, and maybe everyone can give him a round of applause when I hand him this. From down there. Yeah, you got to use that. You're not on this commission anymore, sir. We can't have you up here.
Thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed being a planning commissioner very much. I think the town doesn't really appreciate what you all do, and how much effort you put into doing it. The architectural character of this community is directly on your shoulders. And while some feel that we could have done a better job at times, I'm not sure that's true. I think you take every single project, you look at it carefully. The amount of work that goes into working with neighbors to get people to cooperate is just extraordinary. And as a group, I think that's not only contributing to the architectural character of the community, that contributes just to the character of the community, and thanks for that. Michael, you are an extraordinary chairman, chairman perpetuous. How long? 20 years? Yeah.
He doesn't even know anymore.
But you really run a great ship, and thank you. And to staff, all of you, I've really enjoyed getting to know you and work with you. You're all absolute professionals, and we'll see you around campus. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, that brings us to the consent agenda. Matters on the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and may be passed in one motion. Any members of the public or the commission may request any item be pulled for discussions. We have 5 items on the consent agenda tonight: the adoption of the 2025 Planning Commission meeting calendar, the November 13th, 2024 regular meeting minutes, the monthly October report, and the monthly October report for November. And we also have a use permit for Mad Dogs and Englishmen. This consideration of the establishment of a new specialty restaurant in the use of coffee sales located at the southeast corner of Ocean Avenue and Mission. Staff has requested that the calendar be pulled for some comments. Do you want to go ahead and make those comments now?
Thank you so much, Chair LePage. So when we published the proposed calendar year for 2025, Abraham Lincoln's birthday, which the city does observe, is also the regular Planning Commission meeting on February 12th. In the packet, we had proposed shifting that meeting to the following week on February 19th, but would like to suggest an alternative for you to consider, and that would be having the meeting the same week, just moving it to Tuesday, February 11th. So those are all my remarks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, does anyone else from the public have any questions about any items on the consent agenda? Any of the commissioners? Okay, in that case, I'll make a motion that we adopt all the items on the consent agenda.
I can second that.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Can I ask a quick question?
Oh, okay.
I think I missed that one. The February meeting date, I actually have a problem with doing it on a Tuesday if we did that, so I don't know if that was part of this motion or not, but.
Well, maybe we need to work with staff on that.
So we're giving you the option
Okay.
to do it the same week on a Tuesday, which sounds like it may not work, or bump it to the following week, which is on February 19th.
Okay.
It
so
just
we'll have
creates
to-
a little bit of a pinch point between February and March, but
You're
we
not
can
here on
work
the
with that.
19th.
Right. Yeah.
So one way or another, you're going to miss one of us. Just
Okay.
Marnie,
So-
do we need them to make that decision tonight?
We would like,
Okay.
you to choose which date works better for the
All right.
commission.
Do you guys want to rock, paper, scissors for who goes
So
to the
it's,
meeting?
Exactly.
so we have a problem with the 19th?
I can't be here on the 19th, and Stephanie can't be here on the 11th.
I can I will be late probably on the 11th, or, yeah.
But we'd still have a quorum. We need 3 commissioners for a quorum?
Correct.
Do we know if we're going to get a new commissioner by then?
It's possible that the February city council meeting could be the one where they are appointing a planning commissioner, which would mean either meeting you'd have a new planning commissioner sitting with you. I mean, my recommendation, if you're looking to me from that, it would be if it sounds like Commissioner Locke could be late to the meeting, that she and the other meeting, Commissioner Allen, would not be able to come to at all. So I think a late Stephanie is better than a no Aaron.
So the 11th,
I'm just doing math here.
11th
Yeah.
Commissioner Allen will be here, and you just have a possibility you'll be late. All right, so we'll leave it for the 11th.
Okay.
Okay.
So that is, as it is on your, we've got to change that. Okay, so.
So I'm voting yes.
Yes, all right. Okay, so the consent agenda, number 1, we have to take that as a separate motion, so we're going to change the February meeting to the 11th. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Locke,
Yes.
and Chair LePage.
Yes, motion is passed. Okay, that brings us to the public hearings. One of the applicants has requested that, it's Lim, is that correct?
Number 11.
Number 11, yeah, number 11, yeah. Excuse me, number 11 be moved up to the beginning of the public hearings. Sorry about that, just got a little glitch there. So unless there's any problems from anyone in the public about moving the agenda item up, I'm going to grant that request, and we're going to take number 11 first. Before we start that, I just wanted to make comment. Normally, I allow the applicants 5 minutes to make their initial presentation. The public's allowed 3 minutes to make their comments, and then the applicant has additional 3 minutes to answer any questions. So having said that, we're going to review item number 11. It's going to be a design study 23-124. It's with Rieken-Yoo. Consideration of a final design study for a 2-story single-family residence, and it's located on Torres or Santa Fe, second from Santa Fe, anyway, southeast from Second Ave. Staff report, please.
Well, thank you, Chair LePage. So this item is a final design study for the Rieken-Yoo project. As you mentioned, is located on Santa Fe, 4 southeast of 2nd Avenue. So the project is a 4,000 square foot lot. It includes demolition of the existing residence. There's no covered parking currently on site, and the existing home was found ineligible for the historic inventory in 2022. The project consists of the construction of a new 2-story residence with an attached tuck-under garage. The Planning Commission reviewed 3 concepts of this project, and in October accepted the 3rd revised concept with conditions. There were 4 conditions, which include completing the volume study, and the project did pass, identifying the 3 required tree plantings, which are shown on the landscape plan. The applicant's proposing 2 cypress and 1 pine. There was a condition regarding improvements within the structural root zones of trees to be preserved, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit of detail. And then the 4th condition was regarding the window light well being in the side yard setback. Because it does not provide emergency egress and the code allows for walls in the setback, this particular wall can remain, and it is proposed right on top of that 3-foot setback line. So I'm going to focus on forest character. The Carmel Municipal Code talks about protection of trees during construction and establishes a minimum of a 6-foot setback from all significant trees. And the primary purpose of this really is to protect the critical root structure of the trees. During the preliminary site assessment, the city forester had rated the existing pine trees as significant. We're really focusing on the two at the rear of the lot or on the right-hand side. Initially, a 10-foot tree protection zone was identified for tree number 5, and then an 8-foot tree protection zone for tree number 6. The recommendation at concept was to remove all the improvements within these tree protection zone areas. So between concept and today, I met with the city forester, Justin Ono, on the site, both with the architect and the property owner, to look at these trees a little bit more closely. And due to the topography of the site being lower towards the middle, city forester is less concerned about the root structure of tree number 5 and felt that a 10-foot area was probably a little bit too big. So the applicant has made some revisions to remove the improvements that are within the 6-foot zone, but we found that the 10-foot zone was not really necessary. However, the tree number 6, city forester did have more concerns about the structure of that tree and the proximity to the proposed building footprint. So the architect had made some minor design revisions, solely driven by creating a greater setback distance between the project and the trees. So the site plan that you accepted at concept is there on top. You can see the building wall was a straight flush wall. The revised design that you're reviewing for final approval shows this offset. So in addition to shifting the building wall a few inches to the north, there's a much larger setback for that tree number 6 to protect those roots. So in addition to the design modification, staff worked with the city forester to create some special conditions just to further ensure that these trees are protected during construction. So one of the special conditions before you has to do with trenching of utilities and revising the grading, drainage, and erosion control plan to relocate the trenching outside of this root protection zone area that we're trying to protect. And so that's something we would check at the building permit review stage. We also have a requirement for a pre-construction meeting with the contractor that includes both the project planner and the city forester, so we can review the conditions of approval with the contractor and what the expectations are during grading and construction. The third special condition has to do with significant tree root exploration. So what we're proposing is that prior to issuance of a building permit, the contractor overseeing the project needs to do some root exploration using these very gentle methods to identify where the critical roots are. And if they do conflict with the foundation of the proposed house, the architect would need to modify their design of their foundation. We're also proposing that a licensed arborist be on site to supervise all work during this time to ensure that no tree roots are cut. So those are the special conditions, again, for protection of the trees. This is the south elevation that shows you the change from the concept to the final with that offset at the rear of the house. And this is the primary suite that the modification affected. And so with that, staff is recommending that you adopt a resolution approving the design study with the special conditions. There's a couple more up there. They're pretty standard at this point regarding copper gutters, construction management plans. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff and the commissioners? Thank you. Okay, at this time I'm going to invite the architect to come make their presentation.
Good evening, Chair LePage, commissioners, staff. I'm Adam Jesselnick, architect for this Rieken-Yoo project. Thank you for accommodating the request. I really appreciate it to hear this item. We are grateful to Marnie for that staff report. She summed up everything pretty concisely in terms of the minor modifications that we've gone through from the concept review to tonight. Just want to highlight that the modifications for the trees were, again, carefully reviewed on site with the city forester. We believe that 8-foot 10-inch clearance at tree number 6 will allow us to preserve all the critical tree roots at that tree. And we also, in addition to that minor floor plan change, we raised the floor level of the house by 4 inches. Again, just trying to reduce the grading at that sort of the high point of the lot, so we won't be digging down as deep. We are accepting of all the special conditions that have been drafted for this project, and just ask for your support at this final review stage. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Any questions for Adam? Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to invite any members of the public to come up and make any comments about this application that they would like. Doesn't look like anybody's coming forward. Do we have any hands up online? No hands up online? Oh, we don't have that, that's right, forgot. We have no online. That makes it easier. Okay. All right, no comments from the public, so I'm going to close the public comments, open up to the commission. Commissioner Allen, would you like to begin?
Sure. I would like to thank the staff for taking such precautions and including the special conditions. I agree with all of them. I trust that our city forester will oversee this, and I appreciate the modifications that the applicant has done, and so I approve.
And Commissioner Locke?
Yeah, I don't have a lot more to bring up with this, and just wanted to say thank you to Adam and the applicant both for being sensitive to the trees and their needs as well. So thank you, and no, I'm glad to see this moving forward.
Yeah, I think a lot of good work's been done on this, and I really want to compliment the architect. It really shows his skills and abilities to take the neighbors' concerns, privacy concerns, the concerns of staff, the city forester, and really work out and make a project that really works much better. So thank you. We have a resolution as per staff. I don't see anything that needs to be changed in it. Staff went over the special conditions. So I'm going to make a motion that we accept the resolution as presented by staff and the special conditions.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
And Chair LePage?
Yes, motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, all right. Now we'll go back to our regular agenda, public hearings schedule. And first item is the review of the historic context statement update. Staff, please.
Good evening. I'll be giving a quick overview of the historic context statement update. So the city has a historic context statement. It's part of the general plan. It's one of the appendices. And it was first authored back in 1994 and then updated a couple years later, and then again in 2008, and most recently in 2022. So you might remember when we came to you a couple years ago, that 2022 update tacked on 20 years to the end of our context statement to cover the years 1966 to 1986. And it was in that process that we realized really the entire document needed to be brought up to today's current standards for historic context statements, because a lot has changed since the 1990s. And I'm here this evening because the Planning Commission makes recommendations to the council for changes to the general plan. And as I said, this is an appendix, so you'll be considering a recommendation to the council for adoption. So what is a historic context statement? It's a narrative of historic, social, and architectural context, but mostly architectural. And we use it as a framework to understand the significance of buildings and also the level of integrity needed to qualify them as historic. So is it significant, and then does it retain integrity, or has it been altered too much to really represent its significance? 2 years ago, we did the phase 1 update, the 20-year extension, and that was grant funded, and the city's consultant was past consultants, headed by Seth Bergstein and a sub-consultant, Kent Seavey. And that update was adopted by council based on this body's recommendation. And then it also went to the Coastal Commission, and the Coastal Commission also accepted the amendment to our local coastal plan. And then this current effort, also partially grant funded, and again, using past consultants. And this update had 3 main project goals: 1, chronological themes; 2, consistent formatting; and 3, streamlined content. And I'll just quickly go through those 3 goals. So if you might remember, the old context statement was organized into these themes on the left, and they were more topical, and they didn't follow a chronological order. So you can see there, let's say you wanted to learn about a building constructed in, say, 1905, you'd have to go looking in multiple chapters to learn about maybe the relevant context. So the new themes on the right are chronologically ordered. So if you want to learn about a building, you can easily just open up and go straight to that theme. The document includes photographs. Each theme has an opening photograph seen here. And this is something that the old document didn't have. It didn't have photographs. So within each theme, the consistent formatting is as follows: a historic context narrative, where we talk about what was happening in the city, major persons of significance, followed by a section on the architectural development, what was going on development-wise, followed by a section about property types, styles, and registration requirements. Registration requirements meaning, is it eligible to be listed on the Carmel inventory or even the California or the National Register? Here you can just see an example where we have a style with a name and the dates, photographs, some text about that style, character defining features, and then some representative local buildings. And just because these aren't hard and fast, so if a style or a building doesn't exactly fit within what we've laid out in this document, that doesn't mean it can't be found significant. This is just the highlights. Mm-hmm. So goal 2 is streamlined content. Here's a quote where we're saying context statements aren't intended to be like a recitation of all important events, all noteworthy citizens. It's not a comprehensive community history. And ideally, these documents should be direct to the point and easily understood by the public. So just to emphasize, this is not an all-encompassing historical document. We have a historic room in the library where you can go to find more historic documents. But this is focused on Carmel's built environment, its architectural history. So in the old document, written in the 90s again, there was a lot of information which was interesting, but like this sentence in italics, not so helpful when we go to learn about buildings. We don't know who this gentleman, like where he even lived or how he was active in village life. So this is just an example of something that we did eliminate from the document. But that kind of data, who was this individual, was he important, that would come out in a property-specific evaluation, which we do whenever development is proposed. So we look at that specific property, who lived there, what are all the changes that have happened, is it significant for association with this individual? That will all come out, but it's not going to be in the context statement. So our goal was to streamline it, but you will notice overall there are more pages. And why that is because we've included photographs. So there are more pages, but there's pictures. So it did grow in size. And we also added sections like how to use this document and the evaluation criteria. So So while we tried to eliminate the non-essentials, we had to include new essentials, and of course the photographs. The appendices are largely as they were before. This is the timeline of this project. The HRB has been receiving near monthly updates and reviewing drafts as it's gone along. And then here we are tonight, and you are considering a recommendation that council adopt the historic context statement update. As far as CEQA, this project is exempt under Class 6 information collection, which states, it says basic data collection, research, experimental management, and resource evaluation activities that are not resulting in a serious or major disturbance to the environment. This is strictly information gathering. So this document doesn't add any properties to our inventory. It's just the context. So staff is recommending that you adopt a resolution accepting the recommendation of approval from the Historic Resources Board and providing a recommendation to the City Council regarding adoption of this update. And of course, final adoption ultimately requires local coastal program amendment, won't be approved by the Coastal Commission. So happy to answer any questions about it.
I do have
questions,
a couple.
Commissioner Allen?
Thanks to our consultant for producing this document.
Yeah. Catherine, so did we in this latest version, in this latest version, did we add architectural style summaries? Was that added into this?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and did we also add character defining features?
Yes.
Okay.
So
okay, I just wanted to make sure I was reading that correctly.
Correct.
Okay.
2 years ago, that 20-year, the 60s, 70s, 80s update, our consultant wrote that as context statements should be written today, where style summaries, photos, list of character defining features, but that was just a limited scope project, kind of the later mid-century era. But all the beginning of the document, Carmel's early eras, like the teens, 20s, 30s, there was narrative about styles, but nothing specific, no dedicated style sections. So now this document includes all of that.
Okay, yes, because I felt like those were, crucial. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions for staff? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to invite any members of the public who'd like to come up and make any comments. I don't see anybody coming forward, so I'll close the public comments, open up to commissioners. Do you have any more comments, Commissioner Locke?
Now, I'll just quickly say that I think that the revisions make it a much more useful document, particularly when you do have the design features, style, and whatnot that was added. The photos are fantastic also. This makes it much more usable, and so I would recommend that we adopt the resolution and move this forward to the council for consideration.
It's a motion.
Yes.
Commissioner Allen, your comments?
Yeah, I totally agree with Commissioner Locke. And again, I just thought that adding that architectural style summaries, adding the character defining features, and then streamlining and putting the contents in chronological order, it did make the document so much better. And I do support the resolution.
Yeah, I completely agree. I really appreciate the work that Stephanie did. It's logical. It makes the document much easier to use, and that's very important. And this is a very important document to this community, which has so much dialogue about our architectural and built character and community. So this is a very important document, and it needs to be referred to. So we have a motion. I will second it. Any more discussion?
Nope.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
And Chair LePage?
Yes. Motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, let me just get organized here. All right. Okay. Next item of public hearing is item number 7. This is a design study 24273, the Beretta project. This consideration of a track 1 design study referral for the replacement of a wood shake roof of a 2-story single-family residence and detached garage with a vertical standing seam metal roof. It's located on the southeast corner of Junipero and 10th Avenue. Can I have a staff report, please?
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Oh,
staff's
I'm
recommending
sorry, we're gonna-
continue to this one.
This
Yeah,
has
they-
been recommended
Yep,
to be
there
continued.
was, and as we always do, but thank you for asking for staff. We do like to mention why. In this case, there was some noticing requirements that weren't met, so we'll need to move it to the next agenda.
Okay. Are there any members of the public that have any comments just on the continuation? There are none? Okay. I'll make a motion that we continue this item to a date uncertain.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
And Chair LePage? Chair
Yes, the motion is carried. All right, the next item on the agenda is the Big Squeezy. This is a use permit 24288. It's consideration of a use permit to allow the establishment of a specialty restaurant, the Big Squeezy by the Sea. The restaurant would specialize in the preparation and sale of smoothies, bowls, and cold-pressed juices. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Commissioners. Little background on the project. This is located just right behind City Hall over here at Lincoln 3 southwest of Ocean, formerly an art gallery. They're proposing a specialty restaurant with 14 interior seats, offering smoothies, cold-pressed juices, smoothie bowls, light foods, salads, soups, things of that nature. You can see the layout on the screen here. It's going to be entry and seating in the front. There's counter and register and prep area in the middle, and in the back of the house will be storage and refrigeration. They'll be operating from 9 to 5 daily. As for indoor seating, there is seating allotted to the cottage, which is Building B at the same site. You can see on screen here. That was permitted in '87, and there was no water permit, so the Big Squeezy will need a water permit to calculate out seats, and we will need a amendment to use permit 87-176. It hasn't been in use for over 6 months, but it's an older use permit, and there's no condition to expunge the use if it was abandoned for more than 6 months, so that use permit will be coming to you in the future date. And we wanted to add a resolution stating that. So the recommended condition that we want to add to the resolution would be that prior to operation of the Big Squeezy, a use permit amendment for Katie's Cottage would be filed and heard before you guys. There have been concerns raised by concerned restaurateurs in town about this location being a formula food establishment. It's something that we brought up to the Big Squeezy in our first completeness review with them. The criteria are listed on screen. It's standardized menus, it's standardized uniforms and decor and signage, and having a similar name to other locations. So we talked to the applicant about this. There is some changes. It was first started in Baton Rouge, and it was a cold pressed juice bar. It is since then has gone to the Carmel Crossroads with their location, the Big Squeezy. For this location, they're proposing to be the Big Squeezy by the Sea, which is similar to the recently approved perfectly pressed Carmel for restaurants that have other locations but are making a specific changes to make it a singular restaurant for Carmel itself. We asked the applicant to respond to the concerns about formula food, and they said it is not a franchise. There's no standardized menu, no uniforms. They're going to have the interior decor is going to be a California coastal style. There'll be differences in the signage and the name and the menu itself. And we are also recommending that if the commission deems it appropriate, we can update the condition for formula foods to specifically outline these criteria to make sure that those don't change at a future date. There are some concerns. We like to send use permit applicants just to talk to building briefly because of any change in use would require upgrading of fire sprinklers, and there's ADA concerns that we don't want to have to come back to you in the future for. So just a note, there are some ADA requirements, egress standards and fire code that needs to be addressed. Any exterior changes to the building, because it is a historic structure, would need to be reviewed by staff, the Historic Resource Board, and possibly the Planning Commission. So that's just a FYI. And with that, we're recommending the adoption of the resolution with the added condition for the for the use permit amendment for the cottage, and if the commission deems it appropriate, the amendment to the formula food condition to make sure it specifies what can't change in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff?
No, actually, I do have a question. Could you, I don't know how difficult this would be, but there were 2 slides that I'd actually like to get a copy of, a hard copy. Can you have somebody print those out? Just
Right now, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but there were 2 slides that to me were really important, that as we move into the public hearing further.
Evan, I think is going to go do that.
Okay, thank you. Cool, thanks.
Evan.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, all right, at this time I'd like to invite the applicant to come up and make their presentation.
Basically speaking on behalf of the applicant, but I believe Jacob just kind of gave all the information that I would give. I'd just like to add that the menu would stay the menu would stay the same, the name would stay the same. None of those that were offered would change as far as keeping it separate, a separate location, or not being a formula food restaurant.
Okay, can you explain that again, please?
So yes, he chatted about when you're doing formula food that you would differentiate between the other location. There was a name change, naming it the Big Squeezy by the Sea, and then there was menu changes. And then he was mentioning that you just want to write that in so that it couldn't be changed. So I was just...
So the menu is unique to this location?
It is.
And the names?
And it has specific names that are more Carmel and, definitely
So
have...
are you the applicant?
I'm not. I'm speaking on behalf of
Okay,
the
what's your name?
My name is Sally Larson.
Sally, okay,
Sorry.
so you are,
Yeah.
but Sally, you are listed as the applicant?
Yes, I helped to kind of curate the application and...
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes,
And
sorry
I
about
do
that.
have some questions for you.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
it's
go
now
ahead.
appropriate. Who is the owner?
Ash Shukri.
Okay.
Yes.
And
He's a Carmel, he's a native, so. he
Yeah,
did-
I know he has
Okay.
homes here and also in Louisiana, is that right?
No, he
Or
doesn't.
just here?
He did start the Big Squeezy there, but he brought it home too.
Okay, so who owns the Big Squeezies in Louisiana?
I believe there is a different owner that he sold it to.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so he no longer has the interest in those 2.
I'm pretty sure. I can
Okay.
get back to you on that, but I'm pretty sure. I don't want to tell you
And
wrong, but
so Kim Matsko and Samir Abdo that was on the slide that, this is why I wanted to get the slides
Oh,
printed up, because
yeah.
they were mentioned as the owners of the
Big
business to begin
Squeezy?
with. Yes,
yeah, that might be from Louisiana, so we can
right.
make sure that's
Okay.
separate. But no, Ash would be the owner for here.
For
and he is
here.
the owner of the Crossroads.
And if he sold the 2 businesses in Louisiana, they maintained the same name and kept the same concept.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's see.
But the one in Carmel would be different than that, just to clarify.
So can you explain, though, how is it different? I mean, I know that the business that's in the Crossroads currently has some of the same menu items as what the proposed menu that was provided to us in our packet had.
Okay, yeah, I can explain. So the pressed juices would not change because there's, certain ingredients that you wouldn't really change. But the bowls and the smoothies, he's changed.
Okay.
Just to clarify that. And then the name obviously would be different, but as far as the Big Squeezy by the Sea.
And, okay, hang on. Bowls and smoothies, same. The menu refers to almond milk and coffees.
Yes.
So what kind of coffees are proposed?
I believe there's a cold brew that is being sourced from local coffees, you know, whether it be Captain Stoker or Carmel, you know, coffee shop, however.
So is it
local.
hot coffees also, lattes and things like that as well?
I think so, yes. And then, but the cold brew is in, you know, one of the recipes for the milk.
Okay.
Yeah, it's mixed in.
So the menu that we were provided does not list any specialty coffees other than just this one line that says something about coffee.
Okay,
So do we have a full menu?
I think so. I believe so. Maybe it just was not on that one.
So
I know there's like some
can
seasonal.
you take a look at this and see if this is everything that will be offered or whether there are things that are missing on there?
Yeah, that's just yes, this is it. So it probably did miss showing that cold brew goes in that one, and that there's, you know, seasonal coffees.
Okay, because that to me is also kind of a significant
Okay.
thing that we need to be aware of.
Okay.
When we're considering this.
Okay.
All right. What other things did I want to ask you about?
Can I
Go ahead,
ask a
sure.
question?
Yeah.
So on the bottled juices,
Yes.
then they're all the exact same at all the big Squeezy locations, right?
On the bottle, yes, yes, because in those pressed juices, there's really only so many ingredients you can source to bottle those, like a greens. You know, you're using a kale, a celery. It's a vegetable sourcing.
So the label doesn't say by the sea, right?
It will.
Oh,
Yeah,
it will.
that would be separate. Yes, for sure. It just will have similar ingredients as it would in the other one on the juice.
Okay, so they're not all manufactured at one location.
They would, but they could label them one Carmel-by-the-Sea, one with this by the sea and one, but with the juices, they would be the same ingredients.
So where are the juices, the bottled juices,
Produced?
manufactured? Yeah,
At the crossroads.
at the crossroads, and they're bottled there and prepared.
Correct.
Are there retail sales locally, like in any of the specialty food stores that are, I don't know, small markets,
No.
farmers market, or
No.
anything like that
Yeah.
at this point? So are
No,
there plans
not
to
at
do
this
that in
point.
the future?
I mean, I'm sure there's potential if that's something, but I feel like if you had a location, you really wouldn't be doing that, as far as
Okay.
in Carmel,
Okay. What else did I want to ask? Okay, so and I know staff brought this up as part of the presentation, but so the ADA access to the restroom at the back of the building,
Right.
right now you do not have ADA access, and you would be required to do ADA access.
Right. I think he looked into that, and what he found was doing part of the building permit, there's a percentage of the budget evaluation, and was able to do a lot of that, complete that part of it at the front of the store. So ADA compliant countertop, seats, things like that before getting back to that section.
So the comment was made, though, that if these improvements, so in my mind, the restroom facility is supposed to be available to the public.
Correct.
And there are stairs going down to the stairs that go up to the restroom. And I'm assuming there will probably have to be some kind of a ramp put in to make it accessible. And from what I heard in the staff presentation, that has to come back to us for review.
Well, I think what I understood was that because you've maxed out your budget in the front part of the build, that you wouldn't make the back part compliant. It just would be open to the public, but it wouldn't be ADA compliant. I could have heard that wrong, but that's what I was.
Do we have staff who can respond?
I don't think that's an option.
That's kind of a building permit part, but yeah.
I talked to Jamel a little bit about it. He has more information on it. It seems like there may be a way to do a percentage of your ADA upgrades to the front of house and not require it, but I'm uncertain, and it would be something that would need to be covered in the building permit.
Okay.
Just so that I'm clear, do they have to have the bathroom if they don't have the seating?
Yes, you do. I know, I asked the same
Yeah,
question.
it's part of the city code, yes. I think what is it?
Yeah, because that was what I was
Yeah, city code under eating and drinking establishments, at least one restroom shall be available for use by both sexes within or conveniently adjacent to the specific business premises and on the same property as which the use is located. This restroom shall comply with all provisions of the state uniform building and plumbing codes as to the required size, location, and accessibility standards, and shall be available for use by both the employees and patrons of the business. So,
And it would be, it would be accessible, just wouldn't be with the ramp ADA, but definitely
right.
open to the public, but.
Okay, well, I think
So I guess it's just the percentage. If that's max, then you wouldn't be ADA compliant.
okay, I don't think I have any other questions for the applicant right now.
Okay. Commissioner Allen, do you have any questions? All right, thank you. Okay, at this time, I'd like to invite any members of the public to come up and make their comments regarding this application.
Hi, Ken. My concern is all of a sudden we have a lot of, especially restaurants occurring. And this dialogue is not only from me, it's from the restaurant community also. And when I start hearing these things, it becomes a concern. I think that there's a lack of transparency compared to how we used to get information, and we would study these operations, and we successfully put down quite a few operations. One was a 10,000 square foot restaurant that I spent 2 weeks down in San Diego on, and Ian helped on this side, and we were able to keep them away, and the owner of that restaurant ended up in jail anyways. But I'm very concerned. I'm starting to hear a lot of restaurants. We're at 85 plus food and beverage specialties, and I'd like to have a little bit more. The restaurant community would have a little bit more say. We see things that you might not say. We love you guys. You do a lot of work, but there are things that are more transparent, can be more transparent to people that have been in the business like me forever, and I've been in the town for 79, and I don't want to be Alvarado Street. I don't want to be those kind of communities, and I'm just concerned, and I wish these guys success, but there's a lot of nuances to what I hear there. Thank you.
Ken, can you come back a minute? I just wanted to ask you a question. Can you come back a minute? So I just want to understand your concern. So your concern, when you say it isn't transparent, is that in terms of whether it's a chain or the ownership, and then also are you concerned about the character or what the type of model of the restaurant?
Well, I know the operation, but I've only been in there once. It's just. I hear your questioning, Stephanie's questioning, Commissioner, and I could, and I don't hear that all the information's not here, and I'm just, fast food, I'm concerned about. Over the counter, I'm always concerned about. The way it looks, I'm concerned about, and I just think that sometimes, maybe having, a group of us look at it. We've been asked on many occasions, like when Mark was here, we got a lot of opportunity to study things and time, and we did. And a lot of times they were rejected. And one I wish I didn't, but yeah, I love this community, and I want it to be the community that we all want it to be. Historical, all the work you do about historical stuff. I mean, we have a wall that is a complete retarded thing that was made a historical, but here we have a thing that could really result in a significant change if we start having fast food. Now, that's not like a wall. It's like a whole It could be like Alvarado Street. I don't want to be like that. You know, I want to be a community that we do really respect the greatness of this town, and we keep that. And it's not that I don't want businesses. It's just I can hear it in the restaurant community starting to talk about it a lot. And we didn't for a long time because we felt bad about restaurants from, during the, the pandemic time, so that, we stopped communicating because everybody was concerned about the businesses. But we survived. It's time to move on, and it's time to make sure we get to, hardcore concerns that I see happening a little bit. I mean, we have a gallery that's now going to be a restaurant. It's just water's around. We're shifting chairs everywhere. We're giving a lot of outdoor seating. During the last 5-6 years, we've given a ton of outdoor seating, because we felt sorry for the businesses. It's just,
all right. Thank you.
I just feel right.
Yeah, I understand. I just wanted to go more insight into what you're saying. Thank you. Appreciate you. Okay, next speaker.
I wish I'd remembered my Christmas attire. Very appropriate, Chairman. I was just listening to Ken, and I hearkened back to the 2016 committee, and we were talking about chain stores and how it would eventually destroy Carmel and make us like everywhere else. I think that's partly what Ken is talking about. If I recall, what changed all of that was attorneys coming in and saying it's discrimination and we'll sue you, and you don't have that kind of money. And so that began to break down the walls. I worked for Polly Kennedy of the Kennedy family up in Los Altos for a while. And I said, Polly, you ever go to Carmel? And she said, not anymore. And I said, what do you mean not anymore? She said, well, I couldn't wait to get there. You had all those unique shops. Every restaurant was owner. I knew the owner. It was a family operation. Everything was based in the people in Carmel. But she said, now there's not that much there that's not like anywhere else. And I just wanted to support what I think Ken was saying, because we felt that we were going to lose it and become like Alvarado Street. We also have more noise now in the restaurants. They do have a time limit, but they often go past that time limit, 10:30, almost 11 at night. I live downtown, I know. So it's slipping a little bit, and I just wanted to underline Ken's concern. I don't want to be negative to the applicant. I don't know enough about this. You guys do, how to make the decision. Maybe they're doing enough to mitigate that. I just wanted to make that statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil, for your comments. Anyone else like to come forward? Okay, I don't see anybody standing up. I'm going to close the public comments, bring it back to the commission for their comments. Mr. Locke, you want to begin? You had the most questions.
Sure.
I just want to understand what your concerns are.
Yeah, well, my concerns are actually probably not really super concerns, but no, I was not here for the meeting in November, and I believe there was a juice business that was approved at that meeting. So I'm going to just put that out there. Up until this evening, I honestly had not even realized that we had already approved one juice business. This is another juice business, and I was going to say this is something Carmel doesn't have. Apparently Carmel does have, so it's not unique any longer. I have some concerns about the concept of the formula food concept. I don't really believe this is a formula food business, but based on what I just heard from the applicant, and that the owner is no longer the owner of the Louisiana businesses that have basically identical branding, I am concerned that this will become a formula food business, and that while it may be the fourth fresh Squeezy that is going to be out there, in a year or more, there may be many more of these businesses, and suddenly we do have the formula food in Carmel, even if it does have the same name, but it has by the sea as part of the labeling, to me that is not really a significant change. It has the look, the feel of this business that I was able to find information on the internet. So, and again, that goes to some of the questions I was asking, which had to do with the menu. And I appreciate your comments, Ken, that we really need full disclosure. We need to see what the full menu is. I think based on the comments today, we don't have that information. The applicant mentioned that there are seasonal changes, and what kind of seasonal changes are there? I note that they have bowls, they have various things, but they also talk about adding salads and doing soups and doing wraps and things like that that really aren't part of the application that I reviewed as a commissioner. And I want to see the full picture. I don't want to have this business go in and then find out it's not something that we really heard all about. That goes to, again, the look and feel of things. While the applicant has said that it will have a seaside theme or whatever the concept was, I haven't seen that. And what I have seen are bright colors, bright lime, bright orange, bright colors that I think would be very inappropriate on Lincoln Street in a business in Carmel. And so I don't feel like I have enough information on this proposal. I'm also concerned because of comments about this ADA access and whether or not there is a required modification to the building that would have to come back to us. And so it's kind of like, are we putting the cart ahead of the horse? We need to know what we're looking at as far as the whole project goes. I also had, I do want to say that Carmel, and this is a shortcoming of Carmel, we don't have a definition of what a chain or formula restaurant is as part of our Muni Code. So this is just, this has come up enough that I think we really need to do that. For example, in the city of San Francisco, they have a really great commission handbook that talks about how to go about what is a chain or formula restaurant, what kind of things they want to look at, muting down the colors and that kind of thing. And San Francisco's number is 13. But is 4 a chain? Is, what is the magic number that we have to try to figure out becomes a chain in here? An example of this actually is Alvarado Brewing Company when they came to us with what was then called Yeast of Eden. And at that time, Alvarado Brewing Company had their restaurant down on Alvarado Street, and then they had the restaurant here at the plaza. Since then, they now have opened up a facility, a warehouse facility in Salinas, as well as another restaurant. And they also have a business at the CSUMB at the big soccer field. So now there's 5 of those. Where do we, I'm just trying to figure out going forward. I don't want to see this become an issue. And I also want to make sure that whatever happens, that the Planning Commission has the opportunity to approve the signage. I'm very concerned about that just based on the kind of thing that I saw online. And also the interior and exterior like colors and whatever's being planned for that. And I think that really pretty much covers everything that I had. Erin?
Commissioner Allen?
Yeah, I completely agree with what Commissioner Locke has said, and I do have concerns because I don't feel like we have all the information to your point, Commissioner Locke, we haven't seen anything that would convey what the difference would be. And then knowing that that they have the bottled juices and the potential to grow more locations is very concerning to me. And if we were to move forward with a use permit, we would definitely have to have specifications around what our expectations are.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. We need some more information here. We need to see the signage. We need to see a specific menu which differentiates that and makes it specific to Carmel. And we'd like to see the interior decorations. I think this idea of chain restaurants, obviously we don't want big chains in here like the Islanders, Islands Grill or something where they have this formula presentation and menu that they use in every location. That's what I think the intent of limiting the chain is. What we want to see is something which is unique and specific and reflects the character of Carmel. I'm uncomfortable saying that you've got to limit an owner to how many businesses they can expand into. I think the point is that whatever business they have in Carmel should be specific, unique to Carmel. It should complement the restaurant community here. It should address the concerns that the restaurant community has. And basically, I think what I hear from the restaurant community is they want quality restaurants that have unique products that serve them in a manner which respects the business and the community and its character. And we don't want to get into a formula fast food kind of restaurant business, which sort of dilutes the quality of a lot of the restaurants, which are focusing a lot of attention on fine dining, providing really high quality local ingredients, and I think that should be the focus. Now, you can have more of a casual presentation. Here we have one that cold pressed juices, but that should be focused on juices which reflect the local produce that's here in the county, and there's plenty of it. And that's how they should make their image, that it really reflects that. So that's what I'd like to see. And I guess what I'm hearing from the commissioners and myself too is I just don't see that. And I think that's what would provide more transparency. So I'm going to recommend that we continue this item and let the applicant work out some of these issues, bring it back to us, give us a more comprehensive package with the direction that the planning commissioners have given you, and also the people to speak for the local restaurateurs.
Mr. Chair, if I could offer to, based on what we heard from Mrs. Spilfogle, and apparently Kenny lost my cell phone number, but we can certainly talk, because I'm kind of surprised to hear the non-transparency comment, but Ken has my cell phone, and if not, I'll give it to him again and we can talk. So I'll bring some information to staff and the applicant about what the restaurant community is considering as well, because that, like I said, we didn't hear anything from them until just now, other than the one email we got from Mr. Pepe. But if Ken purports to be representing a large number of the restaurateurs, I'll connect with him.
And I'll second the motion.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion to continue this item. It's been made and seconded. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
And Chair LePage?
Yes, the motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, let me get my computer on here again. Sorry, I've just got to get back to the agenda. Lost my agenda. So anyway, I've got it right here in front of me. The next item is use permit 24305 and 24307. This is for Carmel Crepery and Carmel Square. I have staff report, please.
Yeah. Carmel Crepery would be to establish a new specialty restaurant for crepes and coffee and sandwiches and light eats. The Carmel Square use permit would be for transferring 8 seats from the Barmel Supper Club to the Carmel Crepery to make sure they can meet their minimum of 14 interior seats. The Carmel Crepery would be taking over a retail space that was formerly in the bag. This is at Carmel Square on San Carlos, 2 northeast of 7th Avenue. As you can see from the layout, it's 2 stories. First story, you'd have the seating, the counter, there's the register, and then prep area in the back, and then upstairs would be for a wash space and storage area. The permitted hours are from 7 to 7. And there'd be 14 interior seats. The applicant was initially proposing some exterior seats, but they're holding off on that currently because that would require a design review and a little bit more thought and work going into that. For the indoor seats, there's a transfer of 8 seats from the Barmel Supper Club, reducing the Barmel Supper Club's number of seats from 46 to 38. Carmel Crepery, the proprietors Loy and Foddy reached out to the water district, as did staff, to confirm that 8 seats is what would be required based off the conversion from group 1 to 2 from retail to the specialty restaurant and for the space in order to meet the 14 seats. As I said, the exterior seats will be permitted at a later date through a design review permit. No exterior modifications that we're aware of currently are needed besides just putting tables in the front and reducing a planter that is in front. With that, I recommend approving the use permits 24305 and 24307 for the establishment of a specialty restaurant and the transferring of seats from Barmel Supper Club. Let me know if you have any questions.
Questions for staff? No, thank you. Okay, would the applicant like to come forward and make their presentation at this time?
Is the applicant here?
No applicant?
Okay.
Okay, members of the public that would like to make comments?
We're transferring seats again. I love this. But, and you know what it's going to end up being anyways. We don't have a crepe place here. There's a crepe place in Monterey. It's okay. It is fast food. It is specialties. These guys, I would like to tell you that I grew up quite a bit of my time in Montreal. Montreal has even better crepe situations than even in Europe, in Brittany. And I have offered my expertise. I even want to pay them to go out to Montreal, and I can show them around. And it's a whole different concept. It would add so much to Carmel with the approval of this restaurant if they don't do it that way, but they do it the way that it is in Montreal. Then we're contributing to the town. And I would, support something like that because we don't have a great place. And that's my only concern. I wish they were here. Yeah. But anyways, I will continue trying to get them.
All right, thank you for your comments. Anyone else from the public that would like to make comments regarding this application? Okay, I don't see any. I'm going to close the public comments, open it up to commissioners. Commissioner Allen, you want to begin?
Is this because we don't have a Zoom meeting going? Is that why we're missing all these people? Or okay.
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
They knew of the meeting. I didn't hear any word that they wouldn't be attending, but I also did not hear word that they would be attending, so I'm uncertain.
Okay. There's not a lot of information here either. So
Yeah, this is a sit-down restaurant, though, correct? Staff?
Yeah, it's not order from your table. It is order from the counter, but
Order from the counter?
there's 14 seats inside as required for specialty restaurants.
It's a specialty restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Akin to a coffee shop or
And it's located in the old Ron's Liquors location there? Yeah. Mhm.
And it's a single location, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they haven't submitted any signage or anything like that?
No, that's a requirement of their business license application to get a sign
Right.
permit in within 30 days, so nothing yet.
Okay. Commissioner Locke, do you have some comments?
Well, I will say that the menu is pretty extensive, and it was sweet and savory, very interesting. So wherever Ken, he must have left, but you might find the crepes good. No, I actually don't have the same questions here as I did with the previous application. This is not a formula. This is just a standalone business idea, something we don't have in town. And I think it is interesting. Yes, Barmel is going to have to reduce seating. Hopefully we have code compliance that will make sure that the seat counts are compliant, because that is a concern I have. And they do have ADA restrooms handy. So.
Yeah, and we, to that concern, I'll take that as a question. We do have baked into the conditions of approval that prior to opening, there will be a seat audit of all the buildings involved. So we'll make sure we go out as part of the business license inspection to do that.
Okay. So no, I don't have anything else on this.
And also to Commissioner Allen's question, so Jake just double checked his email to make sure that we didn't miss something from the applicant team saying either we won't be there or we're going to be there on Zoom or anything like that. And Jake, you didn't see anything, correct?
No emails, no missed calls or anything of that nature.
Okay, so we have two resolutions from staff. So one is for the transfer of the seating, is that correct?
Exactly. The
And then
Carmel Square.
The other is for the use permit for the crepery.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm not sure which resolution I've got open here. Resolution, establishment, specialty restaurant. So I assume the resolution of the Planning Commission for establishment of a new specialty restaurant. That's the crepery, right?
Yeah, that's the first attachment should be that.
So do we have any changes to this use permit that we want to discuss? Other than as presented by staff. Standard conditions of approval and the use permit special conditions, the permitted hours, interior seating, exterior seating, exterior cleaning, business license, noise, and licensing and inspections. Okay, I'll make a motion that we accept the resolution as presented by staff.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
Chair LePage?
Yes, the motion is carried. Okay, that brings us to the next motion as per staff, which is the use permit amendment to transfer of 8 indoor seats from the Barmel Supper Club to the new specialty restaurant, Carmel Crepery. And standard conditions of approval, special conditions are the seating and licensing inspections. Any other special conditions? Okay, I'll make a motion, we accept the resolution as per staff.
I can second that.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
Chair LePage?
Yes, motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the next item on the public hearings, item number 10. This is Design Study DS 24203 and 24216 and 24217. This is the FAA projects, consideration of amending condition of approval number 30 of a Track 1 Design Study referral relating to the orientation of the proposed standing seam metal roof on existing 235 square foot, 2-story single-family residence located at the northeast corner of Torres Street and 2nd Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be presenting this one. It's a short presentation. Jake had a lot going on with use permits, and they figured this was short enough that even I could handle it. So I'm going to go ahead and give this presentation for you. As you mentioned, we're here to reconsider amending a condition on a previously adopted resolution. A little bit of background and project information here. You had a meeting on October 9th where a project was approved with conditions that modified that approval, things like the height of the fence, setbacks, colors, and things like that. One of the conditions on there was the metal roof. If you recall, the commission did not feel the metal roof as proposed was appropriate here. A condition number 30 was included to do several things to the metal roof, change the vertical standing seam to a horizontal standing seam, reduce the reflectivity below an SRI of 25, and find a more muted color. So following the hearing, the applicant did explore the Planning Commission's direction thoroughly with their roofer. The RFI, so they have proposed a new roof material. The RFI has been reduced from 31 to 22. The color was changed from champagne to vintage, which you can see on your screen here is a much darker, more muted color. In exploring the direction to create a horizontal seam roof, the applicant is still proposing a vertical seam, and that's where the proposed recommended and proposed modification of condition 30 comes in. You can see there were changes made to the application and the actual roof itself, although it does remain vertical seam. The seam itself, the height of that seam was lowered by 1/2 inch to give it a slightly different profile than the typical ones you see around town. And the pan, which is the space between the seams, was widened from 12 to 18, again, to try to make it look a little bit different than your typical metal roof around town. You can see here's a representation of, from the two sets of drawings of the space and how that looks on the house. It does look a little bit different. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you. The applicant and her team is here. They can speak to you, but it was in your staff report. This was the applicant's statement, talking about the work that they did trying to follow the Planning Commission's direction to find a horizontal seam roof and what that looked like to implement for them. As a reminder, we have residential design guidelines, specifically section 9.8 says metal, plastic, and glass roofs are inappropriate in all neighborhoods. As you know, though, residential guidelines are just that. They're not the code, they are guidelines, and the municipal code does talk about deviations from those design guidelines in that they are allowed if the design achieves all the applicable design objectives of the Carmel Municipal Code, and that's underlined because I'll show you those in a second. We talk about them often, as well as or better than. So the test is either as good or better than would be achieved by adhering strictly to the adopted design guidelines. The Planning Commission in the past has deviated from those guidelines and approved metal roofs because they were able to make findings specific for each project that what was being proposed did as good of a job of upholding those design objectives. And here they are in front of you, straight out of the code. These are not altered in any way. And we can put these back up later if you would like. But you can see there's basically a test of 6. These are the design objectives that in the past, when you have approved metal roofs in a neighborhood, this is basically how you got there by deviating. Again, the code does allow you to deviate from the design guidelines, but you have to, what you're approving still has to achieve these design objectives. So with that, staff is recommending, based on the roof changes that have been made, recommending the staff, the commission amend condition of approval number 30 to allow the metal roof as proposed, again, very specific with the lower seam, the wider pan, the reduced SRI, and the muted color. And with that, staff ends our presentation and available for questions.
Brandon, I'm wondering if there was a miscommunication in the way the direction was written to the applicant. My memory was that we talked about a metal shingle style roof.
So we did go back and watch the video. It said a horizontal seam.
Was there any talk about a shingle? Shingle?
There may be been some talk about that, but it was never, the direction was a horizontal seam roof. And how that was achieved, technically the shingle, has a horizontal look to it, but the shingle was not the direction.
I don't think I recommended a horizontal standing seam roof.
Yeah, and just I'm looking at what the staff analysis roofing material, the applicant can propose a horizontal vertical standing seam metal roof, which I don't remember, or a different approvable roof material. So I don't remember anything about a horizontal seam because I don't think we've ever dealt with that.
As a builder, I know that isn't available. I would never recommend that. I mean, you can't put vertical seams across the pitch of the roof. Otherwise, it's not going to drain. So
I don't disagree that the problematic nature of doing that. However, like I said, staff, we did go back and watch the video, and that was the direction.
Well, maybe our comments weren't clear. That's what my intent was, that they should explore something which is a shingle, because I know there's metal shingles.
And we can, and certainly the applicant is here to talk about that. If you go back to the statement, I do believe, and Brandy can talk to this, I do believe they did explore those shingles, but I think that there was issues with those in their unique case as well. But I'll let them, either their applicant, either the property owner or the architect speak to that.
All right. Okay. Are there any other questions for staff? No. Okay. Would the applicant like to come forward and make their presentation?
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Daniela De Sola. I'm a local architect, and I'm here to represent Brandy Fea. Thank you for listening to us again. We did come back to amend Condition 30, which, didn't make any sense to me when I left last month after the hearing. And I do remember hearing horizontal metal roof. And we went back and did extensive research. And specifically, I believe it was Spengler roofing panels that were suggested by Bob. And they are horizontal in that visually they're horizontally aligned. And they come in, it's not a single shingle, but it's like 5 shingles. And those panels that's how they're assembled. This was extremely problematic. And after a lot of research, the only alternative that we could find was the one that we proposed. Brandy, do you want to talk about the roofer and his conversation?
Sure.
Or?
I mean, I'm going to try not to cry and get frustrated because this has been a long process. I've been trying to get a roof on my house since March. My roof leaked during the last rain. I have water in my house, water damage, rats in my attic. And I'm very frustrated, so please bear with me if I feel really upset. My roofer, when I told him that word for word, a horizontal standing seam was recommended, he laughed. He said, that's impossible. He said, and then I showed him the Spengler product. After a conversation with Bob Delves, he texted me this product. I looked at it. I showed it to my roofer. I ordered samples. I spoke with the representative. The cost of it would be 4 times the labor cost. The material would be double in price. The gauge of the metal is a higher gauge, which means a thinner product, which when pine cones are falling would be a problem. The underlayment is extremely difficult to place and to fix. So my roofer said he won't place it. He has done a product similar to it before. There was damage. The product needed to be replaced. The company went bankrupt. So there's no longevity guarantee. I feel like I don't want to be an experiment. I want to place a roof on my house that's going to last my lifetime. I don't want to go through this again. I'm in the highest fire zone in Carmel. I've tried to pick the most subtle, least impactful visual roof that I could find. I tried to find a horizontal product that made sense. My house is not a craftsman type house. The architecture of it, Danny can speak to, but it's a ranch style house, and a standing seam metal roof is the most appropriate, other than a shake roof, which I would love to put a shake roof on, but I've been paying California Fair Plan insurance at exorbitant rates for months now, and I have no way out of it unless I can put a roof on. Your building code says a natural product, and I would argue that putting asphalt on my roof is not a natural product. Metal should look like metal, wood should look like wood, tile should look like tile, slate should be slate. And so, in my opinion, this is the most aesthetic, the most functional, the safest product that I can find, and also comes with a warranty that I can live with. And I hope you understand that I really tried. Spangler was terrific. I loved the people there. They sent me a beautiful package. They sent a chocolate bar for my kids loved. I wanted to love the product. It's visually, it's fine. They insisted that I would have to put a marine grade paint on it, in addition to, the already exorbitant cost. We're talking about a $500,000 roof for a 1,600 square foot house. That's literally half the price I paid for that property. So I can't do that. I just can't take the risk of a product that doesn't have a warranty that I can live with, a product that could suffer damage from falling pine cones, that can't be repaired or replaced appropriately. And I've tried to make accommodations. I know the fence was on this. I've been very flexible about the fence design. I've changed to that. I'm trying to work with you as much as possible, but yet retain a house that I want to live in. I've lived in this community nearly my entire life, other than going off to college and coming back. My children are 5th generation now. This is my home. And I really want to live in a house that I feel safe and I feel comfortable in. And I think that this is a really good compromise. So I hope you understand that.
I do have a question. So just so that I'm clear. So an insurance company will give you insurance with a metal roof?
Yes. Matt Little from Carmel Insurance, my insurance agent, actually sent me to look at a metal roof for exactly that reason.
So all of the companies that are pulling out of California will insure you with a metal roof?
He can insure me, yes.
Okay, any more questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, members of the public, please come forward and make your comments if you have some.
Neil Cruz. So here we are again, the metal roofs. And there was a discussion on the part of the commission to talk about, how you were going to handle standing seam metal roofs. And I understand it's complicated and tricky. As a designer of homes, this insurance process was unexpected, and it really has changed things quite a bit. Happy to hear that you guys thought that you were talking about metal stamped, shakes that really still look much more like a traditional design. And they are metal, and so they do meet that fireproofing requirement. But there are a lot of roofs that are still going to work and meet the fire requirements. And so, Brandon showed us, thank you, Brandon, the way to take these considerations back to Title 17 and justify them if the spirit of the code is met. Okay, but what I see happening here, and I see this happening with modern designs too, is that this is being done meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. Well, you shouldn't lock us into metal roofs because of this. Well, you shouldn't lock us into metal roofs because of that. And when it's a modern design, there's just like a mantra. You say Frank Lloyd Wright, and you say Henry Hill, and you say Mark Mills, and you say mid-century modern, and poof, the door opens. These things I think we're supposed to be every once in a while, on occasion, rarely, but they're becoming quite frequent. And we're moving towards a village that's going to have a lot of metal roofs. And as I like to say, it reminds me of Squaw Valley or the ski places where they have metal roofs so that the snow comes off. So I see us gradually moving away from that spirit of the code overall. But I do appreciate that what you were pointing at was metal shakes. That would be my suggestion as well. I just don't want to keep saying yes to all these metal roofs. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil, for your comments. Anyone else from the public like to address the Planning Commission? Nobody else? Okay, I'll close the public comments, open it up to the commission for their comments. Commissioner Allen?
So I actually feel the same way. I don't want to see more metal roofs. And so I need additional information, probably from staff around, researching what are the insurance companies doing, because those are the things that come to us. It's all around weight and it's all around insurance. And so I need firm information around what is that? Is it a real thing that homeowners aren't getting homeowners insurance if they aren't using metal? There are tons and tons of other materials. There's tile, there's slate, there's asphalt shingles, there's concrete tile, there's composite. I mean, so I think we need to understand, what are the insurance companies doing, and because if that's a real thing, then we're going to have to take that into consideration. I feel like we've seen these over and over, metal roofs, and we probably have enough of them. But in this specific case, I could potentially move forward if we know that we've exhausted all other options, and we've considered the potential of changing it to the metal shake.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Allen. Commissioner Locke?
Yeah, and I think you just took half of what I was going to say, so no, thank you. I actually have a document here, 6 fire-resistant roofing materials for your California home. We get applicants all the time that come in saying, I have to have a metal roof because of the fire situation. And I do believe we need more information. And Dr. Fea, I'm really sorry that you're the one who's coming to us right now with this, because I think that before we can continue over and over, and Mr. Cruz, thank you for your comments as well. I agree. And I've meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. It just seems like they come up all the time. There's always a reason that they need to be approved. There's always something that makes it unique that we go forward with our approval. I think that staff should give us a presentation, provide us with what exactly the California insurance requirements are, and provide us with alternative products and examples of those products so that we can actually see what they are. I understand that there was this one particular brand that was mentioned, but there are numerous other possibilities out there that are stamped metal, or they are metal shingles, or what. But there are also all these other Class A materials that should be acceptable to the state of California. And I really think we need to do this. And I have asked for a discussion on metal roofs for years now. So I actually am ready to just say, until we get more information on this, I don't want to approve another one. And I do understand that people need to be safe and they need a functional roof, but it does contradict the design guidelines. And clearly we don't have new design guidelines right now. We need those desperately. It would really make our job better. So I really hope that the new council pushes forward with that as a very high priority. But yeah, I just, right now, I think we need more information.
Yeah, the discussion about metal roofs is ongoing. I think the way, when we say metal roofs, that's like a broad category. Yeah, I think it's what we're having a problem with is the standing seam metal roof. And then we've got a statement in the residential guidelines that says that metal roofs are inappropriate in all neighborhoods. I'm pretty much, that's what it says. So what I look to when we talk about discretionary decision is what is the intent of the guidelines. And I look to the guidelines, one of the main intents is to promote our architectural character through the observation of our architectural history, historical history. And typically Carmel had a lot of wood roofs because that was the predominant type of roofing material, shingle and shake, that was used in the first part of the 20th century, and has, still in the latter part of the 20th century. But we've got this problem now with fire, and insurance companies are wanting a Class A roof. And you pretty much can't do a wood roof Class A. I mean, they had some treatments, but they cause a lot of problems. And there's been a lot of problems with synthetic shakes. A lot of those companies have gone out of business. So the warranties which were offered to owners aren't valid. The companies aren't there to follow up on the product. And I certainly don't want a homeowner to get into that situation. And I know we aren't supposed to talk about costs, but we should not be putting extra financial burdens on owners. That's not our role. So the dilemma we have is that I don't think standing seam metal roofs are appropriate for all the styles of architecture in Carmel. I mean, on some modern homes, yes, maybe some even eclectic modern styles. But when you have a house like this, which is a ranch style house, I think it better reflects the character of the community and the style of that if it has some type of a shingled roof. Now, there are metal shingles, and I looked online, there's a whole bunch of them. I don't know the costs. I haven't looked into the longevity, the warranties. I assume they're all Class A, but I know when we had this discussion before, that was my intent, and that's why I questioned about this horizontal seam, because I don't see how that would ever work. Although it seems like the customer found something. Talking about this Spangler roof, I looked it up really quickly, but I didn't see a horizontal seam. It looks like they do a lot of decorative type seams, maybe diagonal diamond, things like that, which obviously would be custom, very expensive, and I don't want to push the owner in that direction. But unfortunately, this particular application is getting caught up in this discussion about standing seam metal roofs. So we could handle this. What I would suggest we do is that let the applicant work with staff to come up with some type of a metal shingled roof that works for them in terms of whatever their requirements are. I assume that's cost, aesthetics, whatever. But I think it is the opinion of the commission at this point that standing seam metal roofs are not appropriate for this particular design of house. So that would be my suggestion. And we have...
Yeah, and I don't think that I wouldn't restrict it to just metal.
Yeah.
But, I mean, any type of Class A roof that
Right.
But not standing
other than
seam
the
metal.
standing seam metal
Yes,
roof.
Right.
So we have do we have a resolution on this? What's the resolution?
No, Mr. Chair, because all we were doing today was talking about amending one of the conditions in there. So you can just give direction to amend the condition, because it does talk about roofs. You can, as you stated, the applicant can work with staff to find any appropriate Class A roof material other than standing seam.
All right, that would be the amendment.
Yeah, I'll second.
Yeah.
Can we have roll call, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Chair LePage.
Yes. Motion is carried. Thank you.
Brandon, can I also recommend that when we have the discussion on metal roofs, can we have someone from the fire department
That would be
with
great.
us? Because in researching a lot of these, they share concerns over metal roofs when fighting fires. So I just wanted to make sure that we include that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
Good.
Okay, I think that brings us to item number 12 on the public hearing, am I correct?
Yep, you're right. We already did number 11.
All right, we did number 11. Okay, so this is a design study and a lot merger. This is a DS 24089 and LM 24151, the Britain project, consideration of final design study, and associated coastal development permit, demolition of existing single-family residence, construction of new one-story single-family residence, inclusive of a attached garage, and it's located at Santa Fe 2 southeast west of Mountain View Avenue. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the subject site is an 8,000 square foot lot. It's currently 2 lots proposed to be merged. The existing residence is 1,787 square feet, and the proposed development will be 3,178 square feet. That does include some floor area bonuses through the lot merger incentive. The residence will be 2,716 square feet with a attached 462 square foot garage. So at the previous hearing, the concept design study was accepted with the number of conditions to be completed prior to the final details hearing. That included completion of a volume study, clarifying the tree planting requirement, revisions to the driveway, revising the roof material. We previously had a metal roof proposed, as well as providing additional details regarding the finished materials. The volume study was successfully completed and passed. The tree density had been provided or has been provided on the site plan. You can see the 3 upper canopy trees to be planted on site. Currently, they're shown as 5-gallon trees. However, we have a condition that says those are required to be 24-inch box in accordance with some zoning code requirements. The driveway has been redesigned to comply with our requirements in Title 12, and then the roof material has been revised to be a synthetic shake roof. So between hearings, the neighbor did do some public outreach to the neighbor to the rear who had expressed some concerns regarding the proposed project. On October 21st, the applicant met with the neighbor to the rear. According to the applicant, the concerns seem to be primarily about the view from the view of the primary bedroom, which is this area right in here, and in this aerial view, it's this area right here. The applicant and the neighbor discussed screening options, which included planting taller plants along the property line, that's highlighted in here, as well as requesting the Planning Commission for an allowance to build a taller fence along the rear property line, which has been reflected in the plans. So the applicant is proposing to build a 7-foot tall fence along the rear property line. So the Planning Commission does have the authority to allow for a taller fence. 6 foot is what is permitted just by right. However, the Planning Commission does have the authority to allow for taller fences. So that has been requested by the applicant. In respect to the finished details, the residence is proposed to be board and batten with a stone veneer wainscot. As I mentioned, the roof will be a synthetic shake roof. The rendering has not been updated to reflect that. It still shows that original standing seam metal, but this is the new proposed roof material. Aluminum clad windows are proposed throughout, and over on the left is the color palette. This is the main body color, and then we have 2 accent colors throughout. Staff did identify some issues with the light fixtures, and those issues were identified in the staff report. The main wall sconce, it appears that this light fixture is no longer made. It's been discontinued, and then staff could not verify the maker model of these 2. However, we do have our standard condition with light fixtures, and staff will ensure that the lighting specs are correct prior to building permit issuance. And with that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a final design study, not concept, and lot merger application as described on the screen. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? No. Thank you. Okay, would the applicant like to come forward, make their presentation?
Good evening, Commissioners. Craig Holdren, representing the applicants Terry and Jeff Britton. Thank you, Evan, for the succinct presentation. Don't have a whole lot to add. I think it's worth noting a couple small things about the, Evan brought up that the rendering hasn't been updated to reflect the updated roof material. It also doesn't show the current stone usage. If you look at the elevations, you'll see that we've gone to more of a water table use of stone, a little bit more extensive, as opposed to these two sort of chunky blocks of stone that we did show originally. So I just wanted to bring your attention to that as well. But the elevations are correct, but again, the initial perspective doesn't show that. And yeah, Evan, thank you also for bringing up the conversation we had with the neighbor immediately to the west. I believe she's here tonight. But we had, when I met with her on property, we had talked about the possibility of having a larger fence in addition to the taller plantings. I did have a conversation with her at the very end of last week, and I believe she may feel that looking at a higher fence is not desirable, and to stick with the idea of sort of heavier, taller plantings. We're showing Dodonea. She also brought up the prospect of using English laurel, which we're certainly open to. They're both fast growing. They both get to about 10, 11 feet tall. Anyway, at this point, based on what we may or may not hear from her, we're certainly willing to rescind the request for a higher fence, leave the lower fence in keeping with the 6-foot requirement, and just look at, as proposed in the plans, fleshing out with a higher Dodoneas or the English laurels. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for Craig? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this time I'd like to invite members of the public to come up and make their comments.
Neil Cruz. I just want to say that the process has worked well for me in what has happened here with the commission, and I want to thank the owner and the architect for making the changes, and that from the front elevation of this house on the street, it almost seems to be improvement on what was there before. So I want to thank everybody for this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Neil. Okay, I think I saw somebody else wanted to come forward.
Yes, I'm not for the fence. I'm for some kind of trees which don't grow bushy, kind of grow up, because the house is pretty right into my face. So I would like to know for my fence, when the house is start to get up, when they're actually building going up, how far it is from a fence to the house which is going to be built. How many feet is that? When the actually house goes up. From my fence.
You want to know the setback of the house?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. How many feet is that?
We'll have staff answer that for you after you make any other. You have any other comments? I'm trying to understand what's being proposed here and what you would accept. It sounds like the applicant is proposing possibly put an 8-foot-high fence or just putting vegetation.
Oh, yeah, vegetation, yeah.
Would you rather just have the vegetation?
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
All right,
yeah.
okay.
And I'd like to know when actually the house goes up. How far from my fence?
We'll get that answer for you.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's
fine. From staff here in a minute.
And he suggested some planting. I couldn't find it, so maybe you can tell me this plant what you mentioned. I couldn't find it on the thing.
Can you talk to us? We can't hear you.
He suggested some planting, and I couldn't find it what it looks like. So I suggested the laurel, the English laurel plant. But I'm open for what maybe he knows something better planting. with their plants.
Okay.
And I would like to know that name. I couldn't find it. Maybe I misspelled. So, that's about.
All right.
That's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, does anyone else here want to make any comments regarding this application? Craig, you want to come back up and address the setback and just be clear about the planting? What it sounds like the applicant the neighbor doesn't favor the fence, which I can understand. She has a kind of a unique fence
She
there.
does have a very interesting and lovely fence. So, and that would having another fence.
Yeah, I
behind it
think that would detract
from that. And as I mentioned, we're fine with that. We're 5 feet. That portion of the bedroom, which is about 17 feet wide, 17.6 I think, is 5 feet 6 inches off the property line, and her fence is just on her side of that property line.
Does it run parallel to it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Anything else you want to make? Any other comments?
I could try to describe Dodonea, which is what we call out currently. But again, I don't believe there's a big. If she feels strongly that the English laurel was a preference, it's also a good-looking tall bush. So we'd be willing to talk to her further about making that switch for what that planting actually is between the two properties.
So you have a landscape plan with that?
Yeah, we do, and we call out a line of Dodonea along that property line.
And those grow to what height?
12 or 14 feet, and they're fairly compact. There's different varietals, but most of them are fairly vertical, so they don't have a whole lot of spread.
So what was the other?
English laurel, I believe, is what she had mentioned as being.
And that's
desirable.
a fuller bush.
It's more. I'm not a botanist, but it has more of that sort of heavy, dense, green, sort of privity hedge look to it, from what I can tell. But we wouldn't want a groomed hedge per se, but yeah, idea of several of those would be fine.
And how high does that grow?
12 to 14 feet.
Okay. Okay, all right. Thank you. All right, I'm going to close the public comments, open it up to the commission for their comments. Commissioner Locke?
Sure. No, I think this is really a pretty project. I'm glad it was kept at one story. We visited the site today, and we're able to see what the neighbor's situation was, and I think that there shouldn't be any privacy impacts with this, especially if they have a hedge put in along that back fence line. So yeah, I'm supportive of the project and the proposed design.
Commissioner Allen?
Yeah, I feel the same way, as long as, if we can decide on what the landscape or choice of plant would be for that back area. I'm glad that they're not going to raise the fence, but instead use landscaping. I think that's a much better solution.
Okay, so as I understand it, the landscape presently has the first species that you talked about, but it sounds like it's a narrower type of growth, so it may not provide as much privacy. So I would suggest that you use that latter, what was called the English laurel. Is that correct? So I would just suggest that we add a condition that they use the English laurel. And based on that, I'll make a motion that we accept the resolution as per staff with the added special condition that the English laurel be planted along the west fence for privacy.
A second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
And Chair LePage?
Yes, the motion is carried. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Okay. That brings us to item number 13.
Yes, sir.
Am I correct?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Thank you. All right, this is another design study. This is DS 22057, the LIM project. Consideration of a concept and final design study for the demolition of existing one-story single-family residence and inclusion of a 250 square foot detached garage and construction of a new two-story single-family residence and an attached garage. It's located where? I don't see it. Anyway, staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the third time the Commission has seen this project. It was first considered at the July 12th, 2023 Planning Commission hearing, and it's continued with direction to the applicant to revise the project due to impacts to the northern neighbor. This is just an outline of the building form. This was the building form considered at that first hearing. Following that hearing, the project was revised and brought back to the Commission at the August 14th, 2024 hearing. Once again, the project was continued with direction to the applicant to revise the project, again with the impacts to the northern neighbor. At that hearing, the applicant did present a design alternative. However, the project was still continued with direction to the applicant to revise the plans, re-story pole the project, and then return to the hearing once again so the full project could be reconsidered. So that's where we are today. The applicant is requesting consideration of a combined concept and final approval. So as we progress through these figures, just once again, this was the initial design that was considered in July of 2023. This is the revised concept from August 2024, and this is our second revised design, or third concept that is being considered today. So for this last and our most recent revision, according to the applicant, the stairwell has been indented and elongated to be set back even further from the neighbor's nook. That's the breakfast nook on the upper floor. The ground floor ceiling or plate heights have been lowered, as well as the upper floor plate heights have also been lowered. The upper level vestibule has been adjusted, and most, if not all, of the window and door headers have also been reduced. So basically, the entire building has been lowered and set back further away from the neighbor's building, as well as some miscellaneous cleanup items. We did receive a correspondence letter from the northern neighbors as well. This was provided to the Planning Commission. And again, just basically the summary from their letter, quotation, they stated, we're just not there yet in terms of the design changes. So in terms of the design changes, to illustrate the changes, this was from the previous concept. So our most recent hearing, you can see the building again has been shifted to the south away from the northern neighbor, as well as reduced in height. The roof ridge of the latest design change has been dropped if you just kind of follow these lines across, and then this is an overlay of the two. So this is the west elevation looking at the building from the front. And this is very similar to that design alternative proposal that was considered at the prior hearing. And then the same illustrative example from the north. So this would be the view that we saw when we toured the site, looking from the northern neighbor to the south. So as we looked out the neighbor's windows looking at the project site, this is effectively what we would have seen of the story poles. Dimensionally, so the green outline here, this is the second floor outline. So at the first hearing, what we saw was a 11-foot 5-inch setback between the neighbor's house and the proposed building outline. This following hearing, we had that same setback, however, the building width had been reduced. And then this third revision, that's that red line, that setback has been increased by about 3 feet, and then the width has been reduced. And then this figure over here, it's a comparison of just between the previous concept and then this most recent revision. So the blue outline is what we saw at the last hearing. The red outline is what's being proposed now. So you can see the building has been stepped away from the neighbor's house once again. And this is just isolating that second floor level. And then again, we have the overlay just for comparison's sake. So we are bringing this forward as a combined concept and final, just to give the commission an opportunity to approve the project if you feel that all of the design issues have been addressed. Because this is the third time you are seeing it, the materials have not changed substantially. One item that has changed is the metal roof. A metal roof was initially proposed. The applicant has, listened to the feedback through the multiple hearings and have changed the proposed metal roof to a composition shingle roof. So that has been changed throughout the design. Other than that, the materials have not changed through the three progressions of the project. It is a combination of stucco and stone with some wood elements throughout. The windows are unclad wood. We have earth tone colors throughout. All the lighting complies with our lighting requirements. So staff, does find the finished materials consistent with our residential design guidelines. So with that, staff does recommend that the Planning Commission approve a combined concept and final design study. As an alternative, the Commission can act on the concept design study alone and accept the design concept as submitted, provisionally accept the design concept and provide direction to the applicant for revisions, or continue the design concept once again. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff? Thank you, Evan. Okay, would the applicant like to come forward and make their presentation?
Hello, I am Angie Ferris. I'm with Hastings Construction. I'm the designer on this home. I apologize I wasn't at the site meeting. I had a previous engagement that lasted longer than I had expected, so I had sent my colleague instead. We have made all the adjustments that was recommended to us by the previous commission hearing. We've lowered everything quite a bit. We've also moved the second story stairwell in as much as I think is we can. It's an additional 3 feet. We did that by kind of elongating the structure a little bit and changing the treads on the stairs to make them a little bit more narrow. This did kind of change things a little bit in terms of elevations, but just slightly. And then there was an issue with, I noticed on one of the walls, I didn't compensate for a bed wall for a window. So one of the walls did change for to make sure the windows would work with a bed wall. The materials haven't changed really much since the beginning, except for the metal roof, like Evan had said. We are going with an asphalt comp shingle. It's in brown tones, darker tones. And yeah, it hasn't really changed since the beginning. That hasn't really been an issue for discussion so far. But we're happy to make any adjustments that you guys feel is necessary moving forward. We do hope that these changes do alleviate some of the concerns from the northern neighbor. It's a substantial distance away from their nook now. So I'm hoping that this does resolve it and that we can move forward with this project. So I really hope that we can get this thing approved today and move on to the next step. But I appreciate everything that staff has done. So if you have any questions, I'm definitely here for you guys. And that's it.
Questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to invite members of the public to come up and address us about this application this time.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mike McCall. I live to the north of Miss Lim, and all I want for Christmas is a solution. I was struck by the chairman's praise for the architect working on item number 11 tonight. You complimented them for demonstrating their skill and creativity in coming up with a solution that works for everyone. I wish you could say the same about our situation, but the builder in question doesn't have an architect, and they seem to have made their very minor adjustments only because you all have required them to do so. The initial request by the commission was for a redesign, but we've only gotten minor tweaks. You've seen it for yourself on a number of occasions, including earlier today, and I can only imagine that you wouldn't want it next to your house. While some second-story windows have been eliminated from the design to help with privacy concerns, we'll now be staring at a wall, which is a negligible trade-off. Our first floor is half underground, which means 2 of our 3 bedrooms have windows that only face the south. They only have light and view nature coming in from one side of the house, the south side facing Ms. Lim's property. And while I'm no reader of story polls, if you're standing in our house, the latest revisions to this design look strikingly similar to the 2 before it. So I know we're talking about feet and movement and everything, but as you stand in our breakfast nook and you stand in our kitchen and our dining room and you see the red at eye level, it seems minor to me. Our neighbors and friends can't tell the difference between what's there now and what was there originally. I even had to ask my wife the other day if she'd seen anyone making adjustments to the story polls in preparation for this meeting today, because I literally can't tell the difference. We can't go back, so I hope that you will require further and more creative revisions or designs so that everyone can be happy here. And I just had a question for the commission. If and when we get to the point where they're building next door, just because this was our first house we bought in Carmel as transplants from Los Angeles 4 years ago, who is responsible for the trees? Like our trees, are we counting on the builder to measure branches before cutting branches or before digging roots, or who's the safeguard there?
City forester, they'll be a condition of a pre-construction meeting with the city forester so that they understand.
So I don't need to feel the weight of like documenting the width of branches, because they're the only privacy that we will enjoy is that tree canopy, and it does lean over the fence, right? But that's certainly something that everyone in town wants to preserve, and I know the builder would want to do the same. But just because we've had no opportunity for dialogue with them, I can't say that I rest easy trusting them to take care of our trees. So obviously there's a safeguard there.
The trees have been there was initial site visit by this forester, and he documented what's there and then made recommendations. So and then we put that in the conditions that they have to meet with the city forester
if they wanted to cut any branch over 4
it's not to
inches
say that you shouldn't be diligent about your trees and taking whatever documentation wherever you feel like you need to, so that you understand what's going on.
I see. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker, please.
Hi, thank you. I will try to be brief. Thanks for coming again today, and I'm glad to be standing here before you again, only because it shows that there's a process to this process. We really appreciate being heard and seen. The first time we came before you over a year and a half ago, the committee recommendation was for a redesign, as Mike said. It was unanimously agreed that there were enough issues that they should consider starting over, and that's not what happened. They've continued to make adjustments, which we appreciate. I know there's probably a lot of frustration, but there was never any sort of attempt to go back to the drawing board and come up with a creative way to build a 2-story house next to ours and mitigate the impact on us. And as Mike said, there was no attempt to really communicate with us and work on that either. And I agree with Mike. I look out and the story polls look the same, and we've been looking at them for almost 3 years, which I'll get to in a minute. But anyway, this town is full of second homes. We know we have to look at another home next to us. We're not trying to stop the build. We just really want to continue to be able to appreciate our home the way that we have. And it's frustrating to feel like the bad guy. We just want to continue to love where we live. And in terms of seeing a house next door, I think the question still is how much of that house we still have to look at. That side of the house, as Mike mentioned, is where we get most of our light and pretty much all of our views, except for the house across the street on the other side. So thank you for taking that all into consideration. And I just want to say, with regard to the story poles, I did reach out to Evan at one point to ask, because we've been looking at them for so long, and there's currently nothing that says they have to come down while you're in the middle of redesign, and I get that, but it might, for a situation like this, be something to consider, because it's just every day for over 2.5 years now we've been staring at orange story poles. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, anyone else from the public like to address the commission regarding this application?
Neil Cruz, just a quick comment on the horizontal boards for the fence without any breakup. Not really a traditional looking fence. If there were a vertical break to those lines, I think it'd look a little bit more comfortable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil. Anyone else from the public? Okay, I'm going to close the public comments, open it up to the commission. Do you have
Mr.
some
Chair, do you want
comments?
to give the applicant a...
Oh, the applicant like to do a follow-up, I'm sorry.
In terms of the fence, we are happy to change that to vertical if that is something that is more reasonable and that's what you guys would prefer to see. We're happy to make that change. In terms of the story poles, they have been changed. I have turned in a certified letter from a surveyor stating that they have been lowered and they do match the elevations that have been presented to you. Another thing is communications have been made, and a lot of changes have been made in regard to the northern neighbors. The communication that has been made has been to the owner. It's not the most, there has been some communication made. We've made many adjustments to try and make this work. The biggest thing that I hear is that the second story is the issue and that we're going to be messing with their view, which I understand. It's a very small house now. This is going to be a big change for them. We are not proposing to trim any of the trees. The way that the house is situated now, it should be missing probably all of the tree branches, so none of that's going to be trimmed. It's not going to be an issue, and that's not proposed. In terms of the lower level, there is a fence between the two properties. It is a 6-foot-high fence. So, I mean, they are looking at a fence down below, and I do understand that the views above are important, but I don't believe that the lower level is being as affected as much from this house as described. And I will also say that this is Mrs. Lim's second home for the moment, but she purchased this house in 2013, always wanting to make this her forever home, which she has been trying to do. That is her goal. That has not changed, and that will remain. So as soon as we get this thing built, she's going to move in there and live here full time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close the public comments now and open it up to the commission. Commissioner Allen?
Yeah, so I know it's frustrating from the applicant's standpoint, but I gotta say that I do feel that the comments from the neighbors are appropriate. When we originally looked at this design, we did give direction to go back and redesign, and that's not what happened. Instead, to me, it seems like you tried to just tweak the same design over and over, and didn't actually think how we could best approach this to make everyone happy. I think there's a better way of approaching these types of situations when you do have this much opposition, and so I'm not necessarily thrilled with the changes and that have been made, and I don't think that they solve the issue. And so I wish that we could have seen a different concept instead of just trying to gain space here or there, or whittle away at it. Because I think now I think the applicant isn't even real thrilled with the house, the way that it's being proposed. So I'm just, I wish there was a better answer.
Commissioner Locke.
I'm not really sure how to follow up on that one. I agree with your comments. I think that whittling away is kind of the word. There has not been a significant redesign, although there's been shifting and more shifting. And for certain, the neighbors, the McCalls, have gotten a benefit from the shifting. It's not as in your face as it was before. But it's also, I can understand the concern about having stared at the flagging for a couple of years, and can you really envision what this is going to look like? You're extremely fortunate that you have those trees, and I agree that is the number one thing that has to be protected on this project, because those trees really do break up what you're going to see to the south, and I think that's really important. I do hear that there has been a lot of effort made to focus on trying to open up the Nook area, because that is an important part of the neighbor's property. I'm not thrilled at all. I'm okay with probably moving forward on this, and I'm okay with the proposed colors and materials and whatnot. But I wish, going back in time, I wish we could have just blown up the first time and started over again and tried to come up with a better answer.
Okay. The bottom line is this project, as it's been proposed every single time, has a significant impact on the views of the neighbor to the north. And it still does. I went there today, it's orange netting. And I'm totally sympathetic. They've been looking at this for over a year. I mean, what's there is an eyesore. It's significant. So when we first saw this, we said you need to redesign it. And I mean, you can approach it any way you want, but the bottom line is you need to work with the neighbor. You need to go over in their house. You need to establish the view corridors. I know you want an ocean view. And from a design point of view, I'd push your addition, second story addition, to the back of the lot, way as far back as I could get, because you need to get out of their views from that second story primarily. That would also address the impacts to the lower level. The way you're approaching it is not addressing what needs to be done. And it's that simple. So, if this comes back again, I'm not going to vote for it. I don't know how the other commissioners are going to do it. If it comes back looking like this, has these same impacts, they're significant. This is a very significant impact on the neighbors. And so you need to come up with a design process that identifies what the impacts are to the neighbor, and then come up with a design that mitigates that. And I think there's a way to do it. I think you can do it, I mean, you got to identify the problem. I don't think you've really identified the problem. One thing you've been doing is you've been sort of pulling it further away from the property line, but that's not doing it because it's still right in their view. Pardon? Yeah, it really, you need to, the way I see it is you got to move towards the back of the lot if you want to go with a second story. And I know you want the ocean view, and you as a property owner the property owner is entitled to maximize the use of their property, but they've got to do it in such a way that respects the views to the neighbors. And the process that you're taking right now is not achieving that goal. So I'm gonna make a motion. We continue this item. Let you address the direction that the plan is giving you, which is specifically you need to come up with a design which doesn't have a significant impact on the views to the neighbor to the north. So that's my motion.
I'll second.
Okay, any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
And Chair LePage?
Yes, the motion is passed. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the last item on the public hearings, item number 4. This is it's called a design study, but it's actually to receive a presentation and conduct a preliminary review of a design study application for the demolition of an existing single-family residence, construction of a new 2-story single-family residence located on San Carlos Street, 3 southeast of First Avenue. We have the staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. All right, so this is a preliminary review application, a little bit different from what we typically do. It's not a concept review, but rather it's to promote communication between project applicants and city staff and decision makers, facilitate an understanding of applicable design regulations, and to avoid unnecessary expenditures in detailed plans. So what we're asking you to do is to provide feedback and direction to the applicant, specifically feedback on the design approach to address view impacts of a proposed 2-story residence. This is not a decision-making hearing. There's no resolution and no motion is being, you are not making a motion. We're just basically giving feedback to the applicant. So in terms of the timeline, the application started in March 2022 when this preliminary site assessment was completed. The report did not locate a specific view impact, but rather acknowledged view impacts from other recent projects in the vicinity, and specifically advised the applicant to meet and consult with neighbors early in the process. In November of that same year, 2022, the first design study application was submitted. That will be referred to as Submittal 1. And then a completeness review was issued by staff a month thereafter. Plans were revised in September of 2023. Shortly thereafter, story poles were installed. And effectively, right when the story poles went up, staff was contacted by surrounding neighbors saying that their views were impacted. Pretty much right away, the applicant started engaging with the surrounding neighbors to understand their concerns regarding the view and how he could address them throughout modifications to the project. So we've identified 3 neighbors who've been impacted by that submittal number 2. And the applicant has, in total, we estimate 11 total site visits or discussions with the 3 adjacent neighbors. And that's occurred between September 2023 and present. And then in July of this year, the 3rd submittal was submitted. Staff did complete a 3rd completeness review. However, staff did identify a number of concerns specifically related to building form, massing, site planning. This 3rd submittal did address seemingly the view impacts because this design did respond to a number of the site meetings that the applicant had with the neighbors. However, the building form, the massing, site planning, all these things, they are a bit different from the designs that we typically see. So staff met with the applicant to discuss and understand the design approach, and we agreed that this preliminary review was the best pathway forward. So just to understand some of the view impacts that we identified early on, this is from the 2nd submittal. So this is from the first neighbor visit that we saw today. This was the master bedroom. So you can see this is from a 1-story element at the front of the building. You can see through the story poles. This is Point Lobos and beyond, completely blocked. This is from the old schoolhouse site. We have story poles through the trees from the 2-story element. So these were some of the concerns that we were seeing with that 2nd submittal, which is this submittal here. So part of the design progression was, this was our first application. We have this kind of S-shaped building form, which was the largest of the massing. The 2nd submittal, this is where the story poles went up. more of just a linear building form with that second story building form in the background. This was the one that had all of those view impacts when the story poles went up. And then this is our third submittal, where many of the view impacts seem to be addressed. However, we have this building form that is a little bit, irregular. Thank you. I was struggling to find the word. Thank you, Brandon. So as you can see, one of the ways the view impacts have been achieved is by lowering the finish grade. So we have about 5 feet of excavation. So this red line indicates grade. All the buildings are shown at about the same grade point. So significant excavation is proposed to lower the building form. This was pointed out during our site visit. So you can see there's some blue dashed lines going across the building. So the top of the garage here, goes through about the midpoint of where the door would be. The roof of this first floor building element is about the plate height of, or actually below the plate height of where this element would have been. And then the top of the second floor element is about the ridge. If we go back to here, right in here. So the applicant did conduct a number of view studies, which really drove this design. So we have the view shed study this was our first neighbor site visit, which shows an open view over the top of the residence. This is the orange as well as the blue. This was our second site visit, which shows the view, again, over the second story element, as we saw on the visit today. And then the green is from our third site visit, which showed it to the right of the second story element. And the applicant is prepared to speak to this view diagram. However, there are a number of things to consider. Even though the views do appear to be primarily resolved, we do have a number of design guidelines that we need to consider and balance, such as minimize the extent of excavation and fill on a site, minimize the impact of retaining walls as seen from the public way or neighboring sites, avoid abrupt changes in grade on the site and between adjacent properties, maintain view opportunities to natural features that lie outside the property, maintain views through a property to natural features when feasible. Building form should appear simple or similar to those seen traditionally. Use restraint when introducing variations in building planes. Use simple forms. Another example, more specific example, flat roofs may be used to a limited extent on smaller one-story structures. They should not be used on large buildings or two-story elements. And then just some additional municipal code excerpts to keep in mind. That it is the intent of this objective that diversity in architecture be encouraged while preserving the broader elements of community design that characterize the streetscape within each neighborhood. We have our objective regarding private views. No single parcel should enjoy a greater right than other parcels except the natural advantages by the site's topography, building which substantially eliminate an existing significant view enjoyed on another parcel should be avoided. And then we have this other objective that really isn't discussed that often, but equity. Design controls and conditions of approval should be reasonable and fair. And then we also have some additional considerations that speaks to deviations. Brandon mentioned this in his presentation about there is a pathway forward for approving projects which deviate from the design guidelines. So, if there is a specific design guideline which requires deviations from. However, the commission finds that it's appropriate to preserve one of these views. We do potentially have a pathway forward. But at the same time, the code also does state that dimensional standards established within this chapter, such as height, setbacks, coverage, floor area, represent maximums or minimum limits and will not be achievable on every site, and that the design review process involves discretion and judgment regarding the appropriateness of each design within the context of site constraints and neighborhood character. So in summary, basically, the maximum development may not be appropriate on every site. So that is just something to keep in mind. So just again, this is a preliminary review. There is no decision to be made. We're just simply looking for feedback, basically to have a discussion regarding, is this building form, is this design approach appropriate basically to balance preserving views effectively. And with that, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Okay, thank you, Evan. Claudia, would you like to come forward and make your presentation?
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Claudio Ortiz. I'm representing Craig and Lynn Harlan Collins on this project. Thank you, Evan, for the presentation and thoroughly explaining the process and the timeline and the project and some of the reasoning behind the design. Where do I start? Well, I wrote a letter earlier today to hopefully minimize the time that I would have to speak and explain all the details about this project, but I can summarize some of them. But I want to start by saying that originally, when I was hired for this job, my first step was to, like any project that I like to do, is analyze any impacts to the neighboring properties, views, privacy, shadows, and sunlight, and so forth. When I stood on that roof, I looked around and analyzed the neighboring properties, and at that time, it was very difficult to assess any views or understand some of the conditions. There was a tree directly behind the property center on the rear half of the property. It was a massive redwood tree. The oak tree that is in the back now has been trimmed. It was significantly much more more growth and foliage, and the canopy was heavier. So at the time, there were more trees, more foliage, more canopies, and so on. But in any event, when we designed the home, after that initial analysis, the netting went up, and we heard from neighbors about the views. And so I immediately went to assess the views and understand the conditions and try to redesign accordingly. So after understanding the views and giving it much thought, there's many different ways to design a building. I'm a believer that obviously, the environment, the terrain, the trees, the slopes determine how the building's going to fit and mold within that plot of land. In this particular space or plot of land, it wasn't just the terrain or the trees that were driving the direction of the design. One of the designs that Evan showed out of the three, the initial one, if you look at it, the rear was pushed to the south side because of that one tree that I mentioned earlier that was removed during a storm. So we designed around the tree. After that tree was removed, we redesigned that rear second story, pushed it over to create some more patio space. Well, that's when the neighbors raised their concerns with issues in regards to views. And so this design is not just driven by the terrain itself, but is driven by a different force, which is view sheds, the view corridors, which are extremely important, as we know. I mean, everybody fights about them. It's probably the number one subject that everybody brings to the table or to this commission. And we all want to be able to grab a little bit of that view, and we all want to maintain it and keep it. In any event, So the view sheds actually directed the design of this building and created the forms and developed the style that you see today. And it was determined that when I started analyzing the views from the neighboring properties, that a typical standard building with a pitched roof, which I explained in my letter why I feel that a pitched roof has certain beauty and character to it that unconsciously a lot of people tend to gravitate to, was not something that I would work on the specific site. And so we had to go with a flat roof. And even if we were to propose a pitched roof, the existing dwelling that is there, it's an old cottage with ceilings of roughly 7 feet, if not a little bit less, and a very shallow roof framing system and a flat roof. And so the neighbor to the rear and to the north, their views are directly, and I mean directly, above the flat roof of that existing structure. So any building that we propose there, even a pitched roof, even a single-story pitched roof, I would have to sink it 4 feet into the ground. So excavation, it would be significant excavation. It would occur with even a standard one-story building. No matter how big the square footage is, it would have to still be sunken into the ground at least 4 feet. What we're proposing here is closer to 6 feet, what we're doing here. So it's not much different than if we were to propose a standard building. So we would have to be really careful how we propose the design to make sure that we maintain those views, which meant that the existing roof that is there now is my how do I put this, my threshold. And I had to design from that point downwards, and in order to maintain their views. So by doing that, I was able to maintain the views to the property to the north. They have some beautiful views to Point Lobos, as you noticed, and to the property to the east, the property right behind, as you saw from the kitchen. When I looked through that kitchen, I noticed immediately that there was two points on the property. There was two trees, one at the front of our property, one closer to our property. And I noticed that if I maintained the second story to the left of those two trees, I would not block our views. And so that created an angle that I had to maintain the second story within. And that created that form, that tilt on the second story. So that started driving the design. And so it created the 16-degree tilt to maintain and open up the views to the property to the rear, to the east. And then the property to the north had a much wider view, more expansive, forced the second story to sit further back into the property. And so those two elements started driving where the second story could be positioned and how it had to be angled. And because of that angle and because of that flat roof that we had to design within, it started creating the form of the building, and it started creating this more of a radial type of format. And that's why I grabbed that concept and manifested it to the living room area and started tilting the living room a little bit to create some of that playfulness, that fun element, and continue it throughout the building. And but it also serves another purpose by doing that tilt, because a traditional building would have been a more linear type of form, which would typically, the living room will be parallel into the garage or the kitchen. So by tilting it, it creates movement, it softens the elevation. Also, visually from the street, it minimizes the mass, so it's a less massive structure. I built this little mass model that I can, if I may, pass it around a little bit. Yeah. Maybe you can play with it a little bit.
That's exactly what I was looking for. Yeah. Great, thank you.
So I built that model to really understand the concept a little bit further and see how it works. And so the design was mainly driven by the views. The design was driven by those corridors that are view sheds, and that created a form, which, based on what I'm saying, this screams for a modern type of architecture. And I went along with that concept. However, it did fight some of my theories that I mentioned earlier on my letter that I put together, and I believe that there's certain beauty to a pitched roof, and I wanted to be able to capture that concept somehow between the building and the sky, and therefore I created these angle elements, walls, by projecting them out. They create the purpose of not only connecting what I believe the heavens to the earth by doing this, but it also creates some shadow lines and some interest and some movement to the building instead of being a static structure that is typically done with a modern contemporary building. And a lot of modern contemporary buildings, it's easy to go after a steel and glass linear type of structure, and then they claim that is, open to the nature and so on. But I think there's more to it than that, than to create a lot of glass and connect the outdoors with the indoors. I'm running out of time. So I hope there's a lot of items that were brought up that Evan mentioned regarding mass and scale and excavation and retaining walls and the height. All I can say about this is no matter what building we put in here, we're going to have to excavate. We're going to end up with retaining walls. The retaining walls are on the rear of the property. They're not visible from the street. There's been many retaining walls approved in the city of Carmel on the rear properties that are tier 2 levels and so on, that are not visible from the street. The massing is in context with the neighboring properties. In fact, the property to the north, the schoolhouse and so on, those are much bigger, massive structures than what I'm proposing here. And there's some postmodern architecture in the neighborhood, some modern architecture in the neighborhood, some traditional architecture in the neighborhood. Before I know I'm out of time, but I just want to briefly mention something. I know the Wellingtons on the schoolhouse are concerned with their views. I do want to say that I did meet with him. I did look at the views extensively. Actually, I think we talked. I don't know if we actually met, but we did talk. And I did look at the views. But the views, I do want to address, the views are mainly appreciated from the deck. They're not views that you're sitting in the living room looking out or from a specific place in the house. I'm not saying that because they're on the deck, they're not as important. But I do want to make sure that you understand that those views are from the deck. And as you can see, we were brought to the edge of the deck for a reason, because you have to stand at the edge of that wreck and you have to be standing to look at those views. Completely different than if you were sitting looking at the views. However, he did have a set of chairs and a table off to one side, because if you sit there, you are able to see ocean views. And those are the blue lines that I drew on my diagram, because those views are not impacted at all. Those views are to the rear and to the side of my second story. They're not impacted whatsoever. There's a second set of views that I call the filter views that he has. Those are filter views, and the top of that roof barely touches some of the ocean view. Probably if you take into the total amount of view in that filter area, if you say that's 100%, we're probably touching less than 5%. So I don't feel that we're impacting his views. I feel that the design opened up the views to the neighbors. It maintains them, and it's driven the design. I want to say more, but I know I don't have time, so any questions?
You can come back and answer.
Okay.
I'll give you more time.
All right. And maybe
we'll get the discussion going, and then you can answer specific concerns.
Okay.
I think that'll be helpful.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll be available. Thank you.
All right. Did you use a 3D printer to print that?
I did.
Yeah. It's very nice. Nice little model.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Members of the public, please come forward at this time and address the Planning Commission.
Just quickly have a question about how this is oriented, because this is great, by the way, super helpful. By the way, I'm Martin Wellington. I own the schoolhouse, and thank you for coming.
Come on up to the mic.
Oh, sorry. Hi, I'm Martin Wellington. We met earlier, and my family owns the schoolhouse, so appreciate the time that you all are taking. I just wanted to understand. This is faces the street.
That is the face of the
Okay, so our house is basically back here. Okay, super helpful. Thank you. And I also want to say I really appreciate Claudio contacting us. We did actually, you did come out and actually we met and looked at on the deck, and then we had a subsequent phone conversation. And so I think that the owners have been, and Claudio have been very constructive in terms of trying to address our concerns. I think, and as you saw it from the deck today, and also interior views of the house, with all due respect, I don't think it's fair to say that the views are only obstructed if you stand at a particular point on the deck. We can actually, walking through the living room, we see the full ocean view, including what was characterized as a filtered view. Admittedly, there are trees, but on a clear day like today, you could see the blazing sunshine off of the water. That's not filtered. That was beautiful, and that's the way. That's the house that we purchased. Obviously. You know the history of the house. Frankly, we benefited from the work of this committee to preserve the beauty of that house and the lot. And from my perspective, I think that the importance of that house and the importance of those view lines and the atmosphere of that house is something that I think Carmel should be cherishing and should be protecting. And so I'm not here to say that we shouldn't develop that property. I think we should. I think that the house that's there should come down and a better house should be put up. I think that at the elevation that it's at, it continues across our entire view plane to obstruct, or not the entire, there's the blue corridor, which you appropriately identified, that's not obstructed. But if you look at the entire view plane that we have, actually more is obstructed than isn't in terms of what we can see. And a solution would be to lower the house even further, I suppose, but I understand that there's adverse views on excavation and all of that. I'm not a designer, I'm not an architect. I just bought a house that I love and would continue to like to have it be the house that we purchased. In terms of the design, my wife and I have different views on modern versus contemporary versus historical and all of that. I think we're not opposed to modern design, as long as it fits aesthetically in terms of finishes and all that kind of stuff. So, I'd want to see what it actually looks like and actually be able to comment on the design of the house. I'm not here to talk about that. I think that's, there are others obviously that are in the process that are more attentive to that. But, the views really are something special at that house, and the schoolhouse, I think, is something that is a very important house in Carmel. So thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I will be brief. Thanks to the commissioners for taking the time to tour our property.
Can you kind of pull the mic a little closer to you so we can hear you? Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Hongsha Liu. I think my husband is there too. So we're the property that is immediately north of this property. So the Point Loba views, that's ours. You have seen from our study, from our master bedroom, from our entrance, so we can all see Point Lobos, and we value that view for all those years. And in fact, my husband, he would be sitting at his desk, so I can say that he would be the one really taking this view in when he writes for whatever materials they are teaching or researching. So it is a cherished view, and it's the most valuable thing we take perhaps for granted for all those years until this story pole last year, it was in the air. And I felt so devastated, and our family the same. It's like, what's going on? What is going to happen? That's when I actually contacted Evan, and Evan put me into touch with Claudio. And from there, I think we came out of the bottom of the valley somehow, one step at a time. And I met with Claudio a couple of times, and I have to say I really like him as an architect. He's a wonderful listener, and after he talked with you once, next time we will be at a different point. So he actually remembers what we have talked, and that is something I take it wholeheartedly. I think to be able to put a project together and go through this community review, you really need to have good listening skills, and I think he has. He really made a significant difference between the first design that we saw and to this particular design that you have seen. And I like the 3D model as well, because you can really see what it's like. So coming back to these points we have talked together, in terms of the mass, the scale of this new design, as the neighbor that is right next to it, at this point, I think my concern is a little in these regards, these two, scale and mass. And then I heard Evan talking about guidelines and evacuation, right? I'm sorry, it's too late. I flew just to keep me in today, just for this hearing. So that right now it's about what, between 5 to 6 feet? What is the difference between the street level and the ground level of this building? I heard it's about 2 feet?
Possibly a little bit more.
Yes. So because you have seen our street, it's a little slope down from the second street to the first street. And this particular little greenhouse right now, the ground is pretty high actually. The difference between their ground level, like the entrance level, and my driveway, it's about what? Maybe 4 or 5 feet even. It's interesting, it's higher than my driveway, even though my house is on the higher end. So I think I want to point out that difference. So even with these 5 to 6 feet dig into the ground, the house still is above the street level. It's not like against, below. So naturally, it's going to be in sync. And then my driveway, right now, it's probably like 4 or 5 feet already lower than their ground. So once it's built, you can do a further study. I think it would be either leveled or quite similar. So in terms of the street view, you will not see this new design will be below, like you're digging a hole. That's not going to be the case. That's my own estimate. Yeah, so that's a good point, I think, to note is how overall effect is going to be, right? So the other point is about the design itself. The first design, I really did not like it because it is just like another house, and we have so many houses like that on San Carlos already, between First and up to Alta. But this house, it looks very fun. It has movement, and it looks different, but in a very charming way. And I like architects like, Frank Lloyd Wright. I like architects like Ian Pei. They are all very different architects than the mainstream, but they also design beautiful things, beautiful buildings that last, and eventually are accepted by the mainstream, and eventually to be the trend center. So I really think this project actually exemplify problem can be solved in our city when neighbors, streets, they really put such strong, sometimes even nasty resistance to new development. It really depends on people, whether it's our city planner, commissioner, you all, but also mostly importantly, I think the architect, how much I would say willingness, but also skill sets that can give them the creativity in addition to communication with neighbors. And I see as a neighbor, these two elements, communication and creativity, they're there to play with each other. And that's why I say, I have to be here today, regardless how this design will actually finally please every neighbor. But I enjoyed working with Claudio, and I appreciate that he's listening to us. And then instead of like the previous architects, just set back a few feet and present you almost the same design, he is different. And I think the owner is very lucky to have an architect like him, and I wish he can design more houses, and then we have less contention in this room. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, next speaker, please.
Neil Cruz. I want to compliment the architect on all of the work that he's done here. Doing something, rethinking it, a whole new concept to try and meet all of these very complicated elements that he's dealing with. And I can see how he came to the third design as a way of resolving those conflicts. There's a lot of work in this, and I think he came to this, and then I think he said, well, this is best fit by a modern design. And now at this point, I want to ask the commission to observe something. 30 days ago, or last month, we had a project and 61 neighbors signed a document against 3 modern designs in a neighborhood with 7 historic homes. Carol and I, as the CPA, we're the ones everybody calls, and we're the ones everybody emails, and we get this every month. I just drive by that house. Do you know that house? And when did that happen? Or that house, and where did that come from? More and more of these comments are coming to us because there is something called Carmel Village character, and I think we all know what that is, and this is not it. I was confronted with a height issue on a design I did on Scenic, and the neighbor behind was very concerned about losing her view if we did a peaked roof. Well, it was a remodel. We already had a peaked roof on it. So I told my client, I want to work with them. I'm not going to give you everything you want here because we need to acknowledge their view. It's very important. So let's take that peak flat, and I'll give you 6 inches in height around the perimeter of your wall. So I'll raise the height of the roof, but get rid of the peak. And we went with a 6-inch parapet, and we did a traditional Mediterranean design, Mediterranean top to bottom, and it worked beautifully. And that is one way of working with a flat roof design. The way, in essence, there's something very interesting, that the way you sell modern architecture is as sculpture. It's like you do this incredible, it's outside oriented first, and you do this really cool shape, and that's how you sell modern. And then you somehow plug the life into it later. Don't worry about whether it's really comfortable or not. And so we're seeing that here, this pattern of, look at this cool shape. That same thing, that's the way you sell modern architecture. So this is not Carmel Village character. And I believe that the architect can bring a more traditional look to this design, considering all of the things he's done to work this through, rather than give us a design that is not consistent with the village character of Carmel. I've had 3 people contact me today and say, are you going to the Planning Commission meeting? They said, how did that happen after what we went through 30 days ago? Residents are getting upset. And so I just want to say that I really appreciate what the architect, I respect this man. I have seen him do some incredible designs. But I'm here for the village of Carmel. I was born here, and we're losing it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else like to address the Planning Commission regarding this application? I don't see, oh, you want to do your follow-up? Yeah. Okay.
I want to say that when I met with Wellington, we did look at the netting.
I did lower the building. What you're looking at today, I did drop the building 12 inches after a meeting with him. He did ask me at the time the netting was a little bit higher. So what you're seeing today is actually 1 foot even lower than what he actually saw when we first met. So I just wanted to point that out, that even after redesigning the whole building, I did go ahead and made additional adjustments to the building, sunk the building 12 inches into the ground. So I just wanted to mention that. Regarding the design, and I appreciate, the comments and the attitude and the perspective of the Carmel Village and so on. But, I want to argue that the two adjacent properties are modern architecture. And mine, what we're proposing, is a modern style of architecture as well, with a twist. And what I mean by that is, because I'm working with the elements that are, imposed on that property, the views. And, to do a Mediterranean building with a angled wall, it's just not going to work. And it's not going to feel appropriate. And I feel sometimes that the lot itself screams at you, tells you what to plant on that specific parcel. I feel very strongly that a modern type of architecture fits well within this property. The materials that I'm proposing, that I want to propose, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but the materials are going to be wood materials, are going to be colors that are going to blend with the trees and the landscape. If I go with a Mediterranean building, it'll be a plaster, more, bright structure that will be more apparent. And I feel that this direction that I'm going in is going to be even further, blend into the landscape. Not only am I maintaining the views, but I think at the end this project will be one that will work well with the nature, with nature and the neighboring properties. I feel overall that this design fits the criteria. It's in keeping with the architecture of Carmel. Carmel has a diversity of different styles. There's, and throughout history, if you look at history in architecture, from the 1100s to the 1500s to 1800s, architectural styles blend and they develop new styles and new forms. And it's part of progression. And I'm not saying that we have to do this based on what I just mentioned, but it's part of, how cities are developed and towns are developed and views are changed. And so I feel that what I'm proposing here is in keeping with the neighborhood. There's a brand new modern building in the corner that is being built. There's a modern building next door to me. There's another modern building to the south of me. The schoolhouse is a modern building. So it is in keeping with the neighborhood. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Do you have any questions for her at this point?
Can I add one last comment? My goal today is to hopefully get some direction from you to see if I can move forward with the project. I need to know if this is in the right direction. I need to know if it's in favor with you, and if I can proceed. I need to know if I'm going to be able to advance this project further and develop it and continue maintaining the views to the neighbors and so on. So if I can get some your input and direction, I would appreciate that to take it to the next step. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudio. Okay, I'm going to close the public comments, open it up to the commission. Commissioner Locke, you want to
Sure.
jump in there?
Yeah. Wow. First of all, I just want to say thank you for all the comments. And Claudia, your presentation and your description of what you thought of as you went through this design process really kind of blew me away. I thought that was very emotional, very sensitive to everybody who's going to be potentially impacted by this project, and that you listened and made adjustments. And I would highly recommend that you get this recording and have it transcribed and use it to describe how you came about, how you did your work. And the neighbor to the north, you added to that, because that was just amazing what you guys said. So that's really what I'm going to start out with. To me, everything really makes sense on this. I don't see, quote, modern house just looking at the, from the streetscape. I see something that's very modest looking to me. The description of how this, how the property sits, and how excavation is actually not really going to be excavation, so to speak. There aren't any big trees that are going to be there right now, so there's no real huge impact on that, which is really great, because the big tree right in front would have been an issue in the past. That by dropping this house and doing this, I don't see that as an impact at all on the streetscape. It's to your advantage that you have that opportunity to do that. And the fact that the driveway to the north is actually lower means that you can excavate, and it's not going to look like you did that. I think that what I'm seeing for the concept, and as you mentioned, it's not a steel and glass modern house. It's not something that's in your face glare. It is actually the wood. The use of wood brings it into more of the natural features of the property. You don't see all the fun angles that you have proposed. And I think that by doing that, you have created something that the neighbors are happy with at this point. And so I actually support the project. I think that it has a story, and hopefully that story can be something that 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 years from now, whoever's living in that house is going to say, this is how this concept came about, and that this is just, it's not a cookie cutter house, and it was well thought out.
Commissioner Allen?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, I would just want to thank you, like really, really thank you for the consideration that you have for the neighbors. I made reference this afternoon when we were on the tour that, you had done the same thing in a previous project, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. The other thing is, I think you're the first architect since I've been here where you actually have an inspiration, and I mean, I'm speechless in terms of like the way that you described your creative journey, the way that you described your approach to this project is it really is inspirational, and so the only things that I would be concerned about the excavation in this situation, just as Commissioner Locke has said, I'm not as concerned about the excavation because of the way that the topography is. So I think we're good there. I do have a concern about the view from the deck of the neighbor because of the fact that you're skimming right along that line right now. And if there was any way of getting it down further, I think that would be fantastic. Love the interesting angles. And I love the fact that it isn't anything like that's in your face from the street view. And then I really like the wood materials that you chose also. I'm a stickler about entry door size. So if you could bring the entry door down to human scale, that would be fantastic. But otherwise, I mean, it's so thoughtful. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, a lot of discussion about this house. You know, when I saw this house, I thought, wow, Claudio really stepped outside of his comfort zone. I mean, really. And you know, this house, just take all that Carmel character, get that out of there. This is a really
interesting
shape that just works. I mean, it just got me right away, you know. And I think even Neil's got to admit that. He acknowledged that. And it just came together, you know, and you really, this is an example what I was trying to explain to the other applicant, that you need to establish what the challenges are you're working with. Establish those view zones, and that's where you found the angle. And that angle led you to the whole house. That set it up. That set the rhythm. You got a rhythm going in this house. You know, you really do. And not just on a plan view, you've got a rhythm going in the elevation view too. And you kind of picked up on some diagonal lines in there, which really creates, like I said, it creates a little tension, but it all works together. And it's really an amazing creative shape. You know, it really is. I think it's one of the best modern designs that I've seen come before the commission, God, really, ever. I mean, there was a big project down right before the Pebble Beach Gate down there. It was pretty amazing. But this, you know, this is a small project. It's, you know, it's a compact shape. A lot of problems you're working with, but it's it's great shape. I think it sounds like the neighbor to the north is okay. The neighbor that's to the east, there are some impacts there. I don't really see them as significant, but I will never convince an owner of a property that their view shed is not significant, and I won't even try. But maybe that can be mitigated, you know, with a little bit more lowering. I don't know. You know, another 6 inches or a foot, that may just become nothing. And I don't, and you might be able to do that without really having to change this design, you know. But you know, I think it's, I think you really came up with something here very creative, and I think it, you know, good architecture speaks to people emotionally, and this architecture does, you know. And I'll just say a little bit about, you know, this Carmel character thing. We had the historic context statements tonight. We were looking at that, and there's parts in there which, you know, have John Thodos's, you know, houses. They have obviously, you know, Frank Lloyd Wright's house. But there were others, you know, there was George Picathlo, you know. And the selection of materials and shape of this house speaks to me of the organic, sort of natural style of architecture which developed here on the California coast from the Sea Ranch. This has a real feel of the Sea Ranch to it, you know, and these natural materials of redwood, siding, the dark colors, you know, simple elements, you know, it really kind of, it picks up on that, it has that. So it really has, it exists in a context, and I'm sure you were thinking about that when you were designing it, because it really has that feel to it. So it definitely has a context, historical context. And, you know, architecture is about culture. You know, it's a reflection of the culture as it is in a time, and that's what our historical context statement shows. That this community was a reflection of the culture and the cultural ideas that happened at the time. And that's why we're not a theme park. You know, we're not Disneyland here. You know, we are a timeline of settlement, of people coming here and organizing themselves and reacting to things that were happening, you know, dynamic things were happening, like the 1906 earthquake, or, you know, you've got pre-World War II architectural influence, post-World War II architectural influence. You know, and these are all reflected, and that's a reflection of the culture. And that's what makes a place authentic. So that's I think, that's how I feel about it, and that's why, and I know that, you know, we want Carmel to be an authentic place, and that's what people, when they come here, they respond to a lot of things they hear. So much of the built environment in California happened after World War II. And it's pretty plain, pretty commercial, pretty repetitive. I mean, they were trying to build a lot of cheap housing really fast. Now we're having a problem with that. We don't have enough housing, so houses become very expensive. And we're grappling with that in our housing element. But yeah, I think you really got something going here. Like to see you go ahead with it. I mean, I'm excited to see what you're going to do with it. So I think that pretty much is a wrap.
Hey, you guys, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
Thanks for your service to Carmel.
Happy holidays. Thank you. Thank you, Neil.
And I just want to say thank you for your input, for your direction. It means a lot to me coming from you. You guys see a lot of work, a lot of projects, so thank you.
Well, you know, we love it when we see stuff like this.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Did you do that in your shop, or did you have somebody do that? Did you outsource?
Yeah,
You did it?
My indoor, yeah.
Yeah.
Nowadays, 3D printers are.
Right, yeah. I mean, what'd that cost, like, in material to do?
Oh, I don't know.
Once you have the printer, I mean.
Not much at all.
Yeah.
Like $10 if that.
Yeah.
Just to do the little one.
Yeah, it's something we might want
That
to.
took
Yeah, we might want to think
10 to
about
12
that.
hours to print.
Yeah. Okay.
A lot of patience.
Yeah, it's super helpful. Thank
Now
you.
you just blow it up.
Yeah, 3 days worth.
3D print the whole house. All right. Okay, so
I should. Maybe it fell off the agenda.
I just had a question
About what? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Every year.
every year.
There's a January 1.
Yeah, I think it.
So I received an email that said that you had to go on to e-filing before January 1, but I don't understand what that is.
Was it from us?
It's from
It's from the clerk.
No, it's from the county, but
yeah.
You'll get yours
Used to get it from the city clerk.
from the city
Yeah.
clerk. Yeah. So wait till you see something from the city clerk.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
you
I'm sorry, but what basically has happened is you're now going to e-file instead of doing
Yeah.
the regular filing.
Right.
So you have to go in, and if you don't already have an e-file account
Okay.
at the county, you need to set that up. I think that's what it
Didn't
was.
we e-file last year? Yeah.
A lot of us do.
Yeah, we've been doing that
Then-
for a
yeah.
while.
We've been
I didn't see
I don't
anything.
understand what that
Yeah, they just,
email-
the city clerk will send you a link, you just click
Yeah.
on it and then fill it out.
Okay.
Yeah,
Basically-
But it's not, so I don't have to do anything by January 1.
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so. I'll ask
I don't think
Nova.
that's a deadline.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I think you have, I think January 1 is a cutoff, and then you've got,
Yeah.
you got a filing
And then
period.
you have to file for this
You got
year.
a filing
Yeah.
period.
Shelby, you connect with Nova and ask her to talk to all the board. Thank you
Oh,
very
okay.
much.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then I do have a report if you guys are interested.
Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So we're, once again, I debated whether to say this out loud into the universe, but I'm going to because I believe in positivity.
Knock on
We're
wood.
nearing the end of another recruitment for my replacement. And so we'll have an final interview this week, and hopefully we'll be making an offer to somebody out of that. And then in January of next year, right before I've been doing two
We're
jobs
gonna
for a
hope
year,
so.
right before a year for me, we'll hopefully have somebody in. So that's coming up. I'm excited about that. Cautiously optimistic, I will say. I would want to just keep you updated. So Evan and I have been talking about, we are still on track to have the AD ordinance polished up and out to the community as an early Christmas present. So that'll go out before the city hall closes, and then we'll schedule a more casual community meeting sometime in January. So that'll be coming up. Yeah.
On the floor meeting.
On the floor
That's what
meeting,
they
that's
want.
right. It'll be on the floor, that's right. On the floor meeting in January. And then I think, this is appropriate to talk about here. But one of the things I took from tonight is I think what we can do is agendize in January a topic on metal roofs to at least set an interim policy, because the design guidelines is ongoing. We've restarted that effort, even though I haven't got any relief from having two jobs. I just felt like it was important. So we've had a series of meetings over the last couple of months to refine the pictures and getting closer to putting together a revised draft. But I think in the interim, it would be wise to come with a metal roof conversation where we can tease out of the commission, here's the things that you're most concerned about. And if that ends up being something, like a interim policy to not approve any or whatever, we can't have that conversation right now, but we'll have a conversation on the agenda so that we can make some sort of decision about a policy.
So Brandon, on that note, will you please do some research, know what the state insurance
Yeah.
requirements are,
Yeah, we
know
will.
what different options meet the Class A.
Sure.
And as she said, have the fire
Yeah, we can do that.
people
We can
come
do
in.
that.
Yeah, because the research that I did said, it was basically saying that firefighters actually
don't like it.
Yeah. Well, let's not. We'll not dive into that tonight. That'll be part of the conversation. Absolutely. But yeah, we'll bring that conversation back.
Yeah.
And then, just as I always do, I want to thank you for a great year. Another 12 months through the shoot. I was doing the numbers as I always do at the end of the year. Last year, if you remember, I shared with you, you processed 75 items through the commission. 107 this year. It was quite an increase, but that's
feels like it.
It feels like it. Though. I mean, if you think about it, this year we had a lot of late meetings. We had a couple double meetings. That includes not just regular project. This is your housing context statement, your housing element, ADU ordinance, Hoff's house, the capital improvement program. So, kudos to you. Kudos to the planning and building department for processing that many things through. It was a lot of work, a lot of good work that was done. So, thank you all for a really nice year. Really appreciate it.
And,
thank you.
And so, did you mention the guideline revisions? Are those like coming up, or
they're coming up. The process has taken longer, I think, than any of us anticipated, just with the level of input and the granularity that we've gotten into, which is going to ultimately be a better product, I think.
Yeah.
So what happened was there was probably a 7 or 8 month period of time where we basically just had to hit pause on it because, to be honest, I just didn't have the capacity to do it.
Yeah.
And so that hasn't changed, but I just felt like it was important in the steering committee, nudging me, and I appreciated that, like, hey, we need to do something. And so we've been working the last month or two on at least going through a series of draft pictures in the draft guidelines to decide, is this the right picture? Do these guidelines need a picture? Do we need a reshoot? All that. So we just actually wrapped that up. We finished that conversation for the residential guidelines, which was a great conversation. So the effort will be in the new year, also depending on the new director coming in, will be to start putting all those pieces together, reshooting some pictures and coming up with an actual draft that we can just put out for everybody, to have a conversation with the planning commission about.
Because I feel like, shouldn't the metal roof
should be part of that?
Be part of that?
Oh, it is. Yeah, we have language draft.
But they haven't probably updated, and they don't have the information that we're going to get when we have.
Right, that's true.
Okay.
So it needs to be included in that.
Yeah, and they should be at the meeting, right?
Or somebody should be paying attention to what.
Yeah, that's the way that has been working. Is I usually bring those things back to them when we have these types of conversations.
Okay.
And then, following on that, though, is at what point are we going to start doing the commercial?
We're doing those concurrently. So we have a draft of the residential and the commercial done. Okay. Like the actual language. We've done the pictures now for the residential, and we'll follow the same process for the commercial. The commercial is not less important, but there's less pictures associated with commercial design guidelines than there are with residential design guidelines by nature.
Back when this whole residential and commercial revisions started back in 2019 or whatever year it was, that we had planning commissioners assigned to help. I mean, I know Michael was on residential. I thought I was on the commercial, and I've never been to a meeting that I can recall.
This was when Mark was here?
Yeah.
So this was a wholly different effort. So that basically died a death.
Okay.
And the city council established their steering committee of 5, and so that just went away.
Okay, and so there's a steering committee for the commercial as well.
You guys,
it's the same steering committee.
You guys picked up those notes.
Absolutely. Yeah. They got all. So the steering committee is Victoria Beach, Doug Schmitz, Don Goodhue, Marianne Chickatance, and Melanie Billig. Each one was appointed by a city council member.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So personalities there.
A lot of historical knowledge, we'll say. Yeah, but I value all their opinions. They do have a lot of really good ideas.
All right.
Okay, thanks.
Well, and you guys are closed for...
We close the 23rd through the 2nd. We come back on the 2nd.
Okay, so you're actually closed after Friday, and then...
Oh, I'm sorry. No, 23rd is a Monday, isn't it?
Yes.
We're here on Monday. We're closed the 24th. Yes, the 24th we're closed. There will be a skeleton crew, I'm sure.
You poor people.
We're fine. We need to be here. We're open. City Hall's open.
Yeah.
We close on the 24th. We're closed, so we come back on the 2nd.
Gotcha.
Okay, so you're actually closed Monday, Tuesday.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. We're adjourned.
Yeah. And
Everybody have a wonderful
thanks
holiday.
To the...
Yep.
Thanks. Sorry that was a clunky meeting.